The main character carefully watches the Duke's son with a camera and drinks, pretending to be a servant. She discovered that he was enjoying his last freedom before the marriage in the company of young girls. The girl is happy to appear on the front page of the newspaper this month thanks to this news. Suddenly, the heroine hears a familiar voice and cautiously walks towards it. She quietly opens the door, looks inside, and finds the Duke with another woman, to whom he confesses his love. The girl is surprised. She can barely hold the tray and recognizes Roland. She cannot believe what she sees. Many questions cross her mind. She breaks glasses early on the tray. The heroine runs away as far as possible, denying what she just saw. Suddenly, a glow appears around the girl, and she radically transforms. Now the heroine flees with tears in her eyes, but looks completely different. A luxurious dress, long curly hair, and many jewels. The main character is Rebel Ivla, Lady of the Viscounty of Ivla, a magnificent-looking adult girl who has superpowers. Ivla knows how to change her appearance as she wants beyond recognition, whether as a maid or a waiter. She used this to work as a reporter under the pseudonym Belle, because that way no one would recognize her, and her reputation would not be affected in any way. The main character perfectly understood why such a noble lady had to lead a double life. Because Viscount Ivla spent his entire fortune on gambling. Despite the difficult situation, she had a glimmer of hope with her fiancé, Roland. She believed that marriage to him would bring her happiness and finally peace. But Ivla's dreams were shattered by reality when she saw him with another woman. She was wrong about the man, and now her life has taken a complete turn. The main protagonist arrived at a secret bar to drown her sorrows in alcohol. To enter, you must wear a mask, so she is sure she will remain anonymous. And all her stories, tears, and complaints too. The waiter brings the girl a drink, promising her that with one sip the sadness will disappear. But the heroine drinks a lot and still feels terrible. And Bella still cannot calm down and continues crying, remembering the betrayal over and over again. She decides to have another drink and gets up, heading to the counter. She asks the waiter for something stronger, approaches and rests her elbows on the table, already clearly drunk. But when she points at the drinks, she accidentally touches the mysterious man. Realizing she bothered him, the heroine smiles awkwardly and apologizes while moving away from him. The girl turns to walk a little further when, because she drank too much, suddenly stumbles on her heels. And Bella closes her eyes, realizing she is about to fall, but when 3 seconds pass, and she hasn't fallen yet, the girl opens her eyes in surprise. She recognizes the same mysterious man in front of her, whom she accidentally pushed. And Bella looks at him surprised, without uttering a word, although many questions cross her mind. While the tall blonde man still prevents her from falling. Only when he leaves does she find the gift of speech to shyly thank him for his help, blushing. Now more cheerful, the girl sits next to him, picks up a glass, starts a conversation about how starting today she is free as a bird. And she hopes the interlocutor asks her how she is, and she succeeds. She decides to tell it as if it were the betrayal of her future husband, expecting monotonous answers. Although at the same time, feeling a slight embarrassment for what she decided to cry about. And complaining to a stranger, this was the first time. But to Ibella's surprise, the man even laughs at her story, and she smiles. And admits the absurdity of the situation. The girl notices that he knows how to listen when the man shyly returns his frown to look cold again. And Bella figures out how to face the situation, since her fiancé is dating another woman. And she can respond to him in the same way. She takes the man's hand, inviting him to become her fiancé. To their surprise, when they touch, a bright blue glow appears around the heroes, twisting and enveloping them. The blonde man does not withdraw his hands, but it is as if he even recognizes what kind of glow it is. Looking at the main character in shock, the man smiles upon hearing her words, and after thinking for a second, accepts the wedding. Squinting playfully. The next morning, Ivla wakes up feeling terrible. Of course she drank too much. And now her head is pounding. She comes down from her room, leaning on the railing of the stairs and trying to remember what happened yesterday. But luck would have it that everything ends at the moment she enters the bar. The girl dismisses these thoughts, happy to have made it home somehow. And she picks up the newspaper handed to her with the intention of reading it. She scans the text with her eyes while frowning. The article says that she lied about her engagement to Roland and then disappeared in shame. The girl crumples the newspaper angrily. And Bella is furious that such a blatant lie also appears on the front page. And that everyone believed her so easily. The heroine is interrupted by a knock on the door as the lackey looks for her and wants to give her a letter. The girl, still angry about the past situation, wonders why someone needed her in the morning. But she accepts the letter anyway. And Bella opens the letter, and upon seeing the absurd text about marrying the Archduke, she laughs in the face of the lackey, throwing the letter away. The girl did not know any Archduke. She doesn't understand why she would marry him, and Bella knows this is some kind of scam. Especially if he wanted something as serious as marriage, he would have come to her himself. To the girl's surprise, a couple of days later she receives an official invitation letter to the Archduke's estate. And she looks at it in shock and realizes that apparently it wasn't a bad divorce from the beginning. While Ivla continues staring at the letter in shock, Knight Irene reports and tells her it's from the Archduke and that she has been ordered to accompany her. The heroine approaches and gets into the carriage, still bewildered, holding the letter in her hands. Wondering how this happened, as they start driving, she clasps her hands in shock, trying to think everything through quickly and trying to convince herself that all this is some kind of bad joke. And Bella, panicking, realizes that if it is really about Archduke Duranta, after meeting him, her head will not be blown off. The main character was not reading a romantic fantasy where love does not exist. It was there that the Archduke was the protagonist. The man fell in love with Countess Yuri, but the young woman was disappointed by the Archduke's lack of desire for power. So she left him very soon. Instead, Lady Yuri married the greedy Duke Fala, after which they united their motives and started a rebellion. The main character is indignant, dissatisfied with a plot without a drop of romance, and with the Archduke's absence in the end. The novel's hero, overwhelmed by betrayal, furious, kills his ex-lover Yuri with his own hands, and then successfully suppresses the uprising. The main character is upset because she didn't have an easy romance, but a harsh fantasy. The girl remembers that in the novel Rebel is a secondary character who died at the hands of the Archduke during the uprising, since she participated in it. That was one thing, but the girl made the man nervous not because of that, but because she was caught spying on the Duke. Therefore, embittered during the uprising, he brutally killed her, overcome by anger. Because of this, Ivla wrote a survival memo in which, besides the rules of living peacefully and not harassing anyone, the main rule was not to cross paths with the Archduke under any circumstances. The girl swore to herself to follow it, deciding that she would not die in vain, but her memories were interrupted at the moment the carriage arrived at its destination. The main character, getting out of the carriage, immediately saw the servants bowing to her and greeting her like an archduchess, at which she backed away slightly in fear. Still wondering how this happened, the girl followed the maid to her chambers, where she had to wait until the Archduke arrived. According to the servants, the doors of the room open in front of Ivla, and she sees a large room and luxurious. She looks around with interest and enters the room. There are many servants around the heroine, luxurious furniture, and most surprisingly, she is in a huge mansion. The girl understands that she has entered the lion's den, or rather, the Archduke's family. But she decides not to panic prematurely, because if you don't get discouraged, you can survive in the lion's den. She hopes that somehow a misunderstanding has suddenly occurred, and that it is possible to discuss all the problems and break off the engagement, which will keep her life as peaceful and quiet as before. And Bella hears from the maid that the Archduke has arrived and turns to look at him. The girl follows the servant's example and respectfully bows her head when greeting the Archduke. However, when he approaches her, the main character hears that she does not need to bow to him. The Archduke raises her chin with a slight movement, expressing his joy at finally meeting his fiancée. to which Ivla just stares at him bewildered. Now the girl sits with the Duke in an elegant room with refreshments, while the man introduces himself as Sistine von der Ranta, to which she timidly introduces herself in response. And Bella tensely takes a cup of tea, trying to remember how Rebel described him in the novel to make sure it is really him. In the novel, the man had blue eyes, luxurious blonde hair, the very embodiment of the imperial family's nobility by nature. He was calm and serene, and a look at his figure would conquer anyone's heart. The main character, somewhat beside herself, thinks that nothing bad will happen if she marries him, especially since his description in the novel completely matched reality. Having made sure he is listening, the girl assumes he mistook her for someone else, or made a mistake, which he firmly denies. So the heroine tries to get out of the situation, assuming there was a misunderstanding, and smiling friendly, hoping to discuss everything, when the man interrupts her again, denying the girl's words. Ivla is running out of options to escape this strange situation. But an old article comes to her memory, and she decides to use it. She reminds the Duke that he wanted to end the Durrant family, which appeared on the cover of all newspapers, hoping now that he has nothing to reply to this. However, the man calmly points out that no one supports this idea, so there are no barriers to marriage. The girl tensely wonders why he is so serious that he is willing to abandon his past intentions. Because there was nothing between them, when the Duke's question snaps her out of her thoughts. The man asks why and Bella doesn't want to become an archduchess, to which she nervously denies it. Wrinkling her dress, Sistine continues the conversation, pointing out that she herself has already proposed marriage to him, and all that remains is to sign the official marriage agreement. The man says that that night Ivla promised him she would stay with him for the rest of her life, no matter who he is, and that she would love him more than anyone if they spent the night together. Ivla opens her mouth in astonishment, not understanding what he is talking about, if she could really say such a thing. And the man wonders why she looks so stunned. Sistine adds that he stole her virginity, to which the girl jumps up in shock, indignant. She really couldn't do such a thing when the man notices that it was her initiative. Looking at the heroine and how she desperately leans on the table, hiding her face in her hands. The man offers to demonstrate all of the above, ready to take off his jacket when the girl stops him. The girl quickly tries to figure out how this happened if she was only in that unfortunate bar. And she doesn't remember what happened after she got drunk. But it really didn't seem like the man was lying. But the wedding, no. That is not happening. She decides. Ibeli, desperate, covers her face with her hands and says that if she becomes an archduchess, her hobby could damage her family's reputation, which he definitely does not want. The man tenses up, wondering if this threatens the well-being of the empire. But Ivla obviously understands that something that threatens the empire cannot be called a hobby. The heroine sighs and denies the threat, to which she receives an affirmative response. She can do whatever her heart desires, as long as it does not threaten the empire. But interest takes hold of her, and the man still asks what exactly the girl's hobby is. And Bella understands that her hobby, or rather her job, might have a negative impact on the Duke's well-being, because she was the author of the article questioning the Archduke's masculinity. The girl wrote that article not out of whim, because if she doesn't want to end up like in the novel. She shouldn't cross paths with the Duke under any circumstances, but no one knows what might happen. While on the street, Ivla realizes with horror that she miscalculated the duration of the transformation, and, already in her usual form, she smooths it down, hoping no one sees her when she sees an adult man. He calls her Reporter Belle and approaches in surprise as the girl desperately recognizes him as the editor-in-chief. The man promises to keep her identity secret, but stipulates that he will do so if she proves how ingrained she is in her job. In response to his questions about what needs to be done, the girl receives the task to publish sensational news. And Belle throws her pen away in anger if it were up to her. She would have written this article long ago, but now she is just waiting for at least some news. The heroine remembers that the only sensational news now is that many young women dreamed of marrying the Archduke for love. In power, But there were also those who coveted the position of Archduchess and tried to frame the Archduke, either by telling him they had a child with him or threatening suicide. But the girls only became protagonists of many absurd cases because the man announced that he would never marry, and that he would become the last Archduke of his family. The heroine thinks that if the Archduke dies without marrying, there will be no Durrant family, and his territory will go to the imperial family, but this was not very profitable for him. To find out the reason for this decision by the man, Ivla began to investigate this topic undercover. At night, in an alley, a girl sees a man trying to sell a bag full of herbs, about which he tells a miracle whose magical properties are rumored among the people. The main character, watching from the corner, recognizes the herbs which, due to their popularity, were almost impossible to find. The man hidden under the hood thanks the vendor by taking the bag of herbs and conveying his master's gratitude when the girl recognizes something familiar in him. And Bella remembers the man because she has already seen him in the Archduke's mansion. The girl thinks it's 16, but why does he need these herbs? She tries to connect these events while hiding. The heroine remembers that the man refuses to marry and continue the family, while searching for and buying a means to increase potency. The insightful girl takes the pen while sitting at the table, which means the Duke cannot fulfill his marital duty to his wife. So he has no choice but to remain single forever. And Bella takes the already written article to the editor, who enthusiastically and smilingly rejoices at the scandal surrounding the Archduke, and praises her, promising to keep her secret. The next day, the news spreads at a dizzying speed, and everyone is talking about the article, laughing at the revelation of the man's secret. The girl, consequently, also became popular under her pseudonym upon learning from the townspeople who she was, and that she dared to smear the Archduke. And Bella realized that if his lordship revealed her, she would 100% immediately lose her head without the possibility of avoiding death. The man was confused, suggesting that perhaps the main character has the same hobby as her mother, racing between wagons and trains, to which she again awkwardly denies everything. The girl had run out of excuses, and due to her stubbornness, it was impossible to simply escape. She was already starting to think about pretending everything was fine and simply marrying him. After all, if Ivla became an archduchess, she would live exactly as she always wanted: evenings, more luxurious outfits, and drinks. However, the girl dismissed these thoughts because if one day, an unfortunate one, the Duke found out everything and how she would have to justify herself then. If the man discovered she was reporter Belle, he would obviously remember that very article. Of course, she had her reasons for writing it, but it tarnished her reputation, and that of the imperial family. And Belle feared that he would not listen to the reasons why she did this, and would immediately declare her a criminal and send her to execution. The main character realized that she was definitely not ready for this, because a wedding with him was like a death sentence for her. But what should she do then? The girl leaned over desperately, trying to find at least a couple more excuses that could get her out of this situation, while the man assured her in a calm voice that he would no longer be interested in her hobby, since she was uncomfortable talking about it. And Belle didn't move, realizing the hopelessness of the situation when Sistine repeated her words again that she could do whatever she wanted always, and when it didn't threaten the empire. Suddenly, the man kneels down and takes her hand, pulling her out of her thoughts as he announces that he will not back down on the idea of their marriage, no matter what happens. He says he needs the girl, bows and kisses her hand, and indeed she wouldn't mind becoming an archduchess. That would save her from a poor life, but the fear of losing her life is stronger. Sistine points out that only the official meeting of their families and the wedding ceremony remain, offering to meet the Empress Dowager now, while the girl, still embarrassed by the kiss, sits down in the astral plane. At such a hasty proposal, Ivella jumps up surprised, but the man says she hasn't slept together yet, so everything should be fine if they leave now. The girl is not fit for such an important visit and wears a ragged dress. The heroine awkwardly clutches her hem, squeezing out a few words in protest. The man is quick to reassure the girl by telling her that his mother likes vintage, even though Ivla was only wearing a worn dress, and then adds that she looks beautiful in any clothes. Before she realizes it, she is already in the carriage, which sets off accompanied by farewells and wishes of success on the journey from the servants. The girl nods, not knowing what to think. She is temporarily speechless, and simply walked painfully behind the Duke, who was now on his way. There were two important things on Ibel's to-do list: break off the engagement and push the Archduke away from her forever, but not even now had she managed to cope with one or the other. And the meeting with the Empress will add fuel to the fire. The girl remembers that something strange happened when the city started talking about her article about the Duke. The editor-in-chief disappeared. When asked where he was, she received the answer that he was on indefinite leave. The heroine wondered in incomprehension how he could take indefinite leave without even telling her when to return. However, in response to her persistent questions about the editor, she received no further information except that he disappeared and never returned. From the reaction of the person she questioned, the girl assumed that someone had forced him to remain silent. Ivella is not stupid and realized that this was most likely related to the article about the Archduke. The Empress is standing by the window of the room when a maid notifies her of the arrival of the Archduke's carriage with Lady Rebel. To which Her Majesty approaches the table, looking at the leaflets about the investigation report of Rebel's case. And Vila, reporter of Vel. Belle enters the palace with the Duke, biting her nail nervously and wondering if it is too late to run away from here to hell. The man, noticing her nervous state, asks if everything is all right and if he can help her with anything. And Bella assures him that everything is fine, but she is still very nervous because she has never met the Empress Dowager before. To this, the Duke tries to convince her that she has nothing to worry about, and that the Empress is a kind-hearted person. The girl remembers the Empress's hobby of making trains race against wagons, testing the limits of human capabilities. And her experiments on how many people fit in a carriage make Ivla shudder. Her Majesty often got angry and simply abandoned the competition, telling the servants that the tests were not fun enough for her, and that they were a waste of time. The Empress finally ordered that the people participating in these contests should no longer appear before her sight, to which she received whining shouts and pleas for clemency. The girl remembered that with the help of her powerful intellect, the Empress pursued traitors and turned the lives of those who simply bored her into hell. It is clear what she did to those who betrayed her. Betrayed. Her Majesty did not hold back regarding punishment, ordering the surviving traitors to be set adrift at sea for forgiveness and freedom. To ensure that no one ever betrayed her again, the Empress ordered the land where they hatched their plans to be turned into a wasteland. At that moment, Her Majesty, dressed in elegant robes, greeted her son by happily pronouncing his name. The man bowed to greet her, while Ivla fearfully noticed that she was a loving mother to her two sons. But only to the two of them. Finally, the Empress turned her attention to the girl, turning and looking at her, asking her son who she was. The main character immediately bowed nervously, greeting the Empress Dowager, and expressing her joy at the meeting. Her Majesty noticed the girl's excitement and realized that she was afraid of knowing who she really was. The Empress decides to tease her a little upon seeing her reaction and approaches her with a smile. At this moment, Ivla is still bowing, not understanding why she wasn't told to stop bowing when she hears harsh words about lifting her head. The heroine, not knowing how she could have ignored her words, raises her head looking at the Empress when she notices her head feels heavy. The next second, she stands close to her, offers her help, and promises that her neck will feel lighter immediately if she removes the extra weight. Her Majesty extends her hand, lifts her chin, and waits with a smile for her answer as to whether she should shorten the heroine by exactly one head. All this is interrupted by the Duke, taking his mother's hand and pulling her away from Ivla. He tells his mother that Rebel is nervous and therefore might not understand the joke because she is afraid. The man asks the Empress to refrain from teasing since this is their first meeting. In response, Her Majesty bursts out laughing, thinking that Ibel will be able to excite Sistine. Immediately, the Empress changes, becomes affectionate, and tells Ibel that she just failed to calm the situation, and asks her pardon for frightening her. She approaches, hugging the girl, expressing her joy in greeting the Archduchess, and the fact that her son has finally come to his senses and decided to marry. To her delight, the main character is left confused, not knowing what to say, while the Empress asks her son to exchange a few words with the girl for a minute. And Bella looks pleadingly at Sistine not to leave her alone with the Empress. But he agrees and leaves for the hallway to wait for the end of their conversation. And Bella is left alone with the lady in a large room. Her Majesty calls the girl over and offers her tea and simply to talk. When Belle calls her reporter instead of her usual name, the girl stands behind the Empress in horror looking at her. Ivla is already mentally saying goodbye to life, realizing that, as she thought, everything has been known for a long time. Her Majesty asks how the girl realized that she already knew everything, to which Ivy fearfully reminds her about the missing editor. The Empress, smiling, is glad that the girl realized this because she had carried out her investigation. And that's why she was very surprised when she received a letter from her son in which Rebella's proposal was written about. The heroine asks if Sistine knows this story, to which she receives a negative answer. And the woman remembers that after the article, he was very angry and there were several fewer chairs on his estate. And Bella wonders what will happen to her now. Will she be executed or fed to sharks? While the girl sits scared and awaits the verdict, the Empress begins to say that the meeting took place, and that she received her approval. And if so, the last step remains, a meeting with Ivla's parents. Her Majesty steps forward and reminds her of the choice of the wedding dress, as well as the location of the wedding ceremony. The Empress speaks of this with a smile, assuring that the wedding will go well and they will have a long life. And happy. Ivla asks in amazement that even knowing who she really is, they won't punish her, but simply allow her to marry the Empress's son, to which Her Majesty smiles playfully. She nods and promises not only to keep her secret, but also to tell the truth about who reporter Shu really is. The girl remembers that journalist Shu is the same one who wrote unpleasant articles about her, and eagerly wants to know what kind of bastard hides behind the pseudonym. But the Empress points out that free cheese is only found in a mousetrap and promises to tell her only in exchange for a small favor. She promises that there is nothing complicated in the request, and in return, she will also protect her from Sistine, even if he finds out everything. The heroine, encouraged, realizes that she will no longer have to fear for her life and hurries to ask what kind of service she must perform. To which Her Majesty tells her to sit next to her because they are about to talk about Sistine. Before Sistine's eyes are memories of childhood and his brother in front of him, in his blood, who calls him a monster. The maid called the man and offered to escort him to the guest room. But he refuses, stays where he is, and says he will wait here. Initially, Sistine had no intention of marrying because, although his body is full of magic, there is a high risk that he will harm his loved ones. Even disregarding the man's circumstances, his brother continues to look after him even after taking the throne. So he couldn't marry a girl from an influential family anyway. That's why Sistine held a celibacy dinner, thinking he would never go back on his words until Rebel appeared. He felt that the unusual feeling that arose after meeting her only grew stronger as soon as they held hands. The magic boiling inside the hero and driving those around him crazy suddenly subsided, leaving calmness behind. Rebel promised him that night that she would not irritate him. He would respect her privacy, but he was worried about something else. She possessed a strange power that calmed his magic. Sistine agreed that marriage sounds good when he needs her strength for a positive answer. The girl jumped up happily. Rebella ran and threw the man onto the bed, deciding with a smug air to introduce herself first because she thought the man wouldn't tell her who he was. The girl, taking off her mask and smiling, introduced herself syllable by syllable, boasting of her beautiful name. The man tensed, wondering how everything had happened and inviting the girl to return because she was drunk. Rebel disagrees. She says they are getting married and asks if he has changed his mind. She brings her hand to his face, removes his mask, and asks if he is going to pretend that nothing happened. To which she receives a negative answer. The man takes her hand and clarifies if that is exactly what she really wants. The girl confirms her desire by kissing the man and placing her hands on his shoulders. Sistine remembers that the wedding night, as usual, passed quickly. But during the process, the girl places her hand on his cheek, murmuring another man's name, which surprises the Duke. And Bella murmurs in her sleep that she will not forgive or forget Roland, insulting him, while Sistine understands that the marriage is beneficial for both. Currently, the protagonist exclaims in surprise. The Empress told her that the Duke expresses neither joy nor sorrow. Her Majesty says, with a gloomy look, that her son never talks about what he wants, and simply expresses no desires even to his family. The Empress asks the heroine if he seems cold to her. The girl agrees that he is not very emotional and barely knows how to express his feelings. However, Bella remembers his actions towards her and blushes, admitting that she understands what the Empress is talking about. But she doesn't completely agree with it. Her Majesty believes that everything is different with her, since he sends her letters as soon as the sun rises. The Empress admits that she approved the marriage as soon as she received the letter of joy, waking up Her Majesty before dawn. Her Majesty, smiling, remembers that she felt overwhelmed with joy, so she wanted to share it with someone. The woman says that for a long time she did not express any desires, but when the letter arrived, the Empress immediately remembered Sistine's childhood, when he freely talked about what his heart desired. Her Majesty says that he experienced emotions, laughed, cried, and simply enjoyed life. The Empress takes Ibella's hands, asking for either love, tears, or even anger. Whatever, but let her evoke emotions in him so that he can finally express them. The girl realizes with confusion that the woman wants her to melt the Archduke's cold heart. But despite everything leading to marriage sooner, all that connected them with the man was just one night. Although he promised to marry the main character, there was no mention of deep feelings or how much she needs to melt his heart. And Bella gathers strength, replying that she is grateful that such a request was made by a modest lady from a not very influential house, and that they were offered a tempting reward. However, withdrawing her hand, she tries to say that she cannot do this when the woman interrupts her by mentioning that no one rejects her. Her Majesty smiles playfully, allowing her to speak directly because she knows the heroine doesn't like beating around the bush. And Bella nods resignedly and tells her that, although she proposed marriage to the Archduke, she does not feel passion for him and, moreover, does not have the talent to evoke emotions in people. Her Majesty denies the heroine's words because she had previously managed to evoke stronger emotions in him. So the girl does not need to be modest. The woman points out that the Archduke broke several chairs precisely because of the heroine, or rather, because of her article. The man then began to show some interest in reporter Belle, so if Bella continues with her job, Sistine will start showing emotions openly. The main character sighs in disgust, suggesting that in this case she will suffer the fate of the chairs. But Her Majesty assures her that she will protect her. The woman says that if she refuses such a lucrative deal, she will regret it. This is true, because marrying Sistina will bring prosperity and peace to evil, and will also allow her to escape the past of a noble lady, whose father lost a fortune in gambling. Her Majesty promises that she will personally announce the name of who became Archduchess, and everyone, without exception, will know about her. Evelyn is smart enough to understand what she means and promises to give her time to think about how to take revenge. However, the woman asks for an answer to her request right now and extends her hand, and asks one last time if she agrees to fulfill her request. The main character panics and looks at the extended hand, but after quickly thinking about everything, the girl highlights the advantages for her. And there are indeed many. Because she will receive protection from the Empress, take revenge on Roland, reveal the identity of reporter Shu, and a bunch of other things. And the only disadvantage is revealing her secret to the Archduke. Ivla smiles happily, extends her hand, and accepts the deal, already thinking about how to get rid of a life of poverty. Her Majesty calls Sistina, thanking her for waiting, saying she had a very pleasant conversation with Ivla. The woman remembers that they now need to arrange a meeting with Viscount Ivla, and wonders when the heroes will be able to do what the man puts in his pocket. He pulls out a small envelope, saying that Ivla already gave him an invitation 4 days ago, and even wrote the date, to which the girl looks at him bewildered. The man hands the paper to Her Majesty, who unfolds it with a smile. She reads aloud a letter containing an invitation to Viscountess Ibel's estate, at which the main character blushes, burning with shame. The girl leans towards Sistine and asks when she managed to write this invitation on such a piece of paper. To which the man informs that she took the check at the bar and quickly wrote an invitation there after returning it to him. Envila falls silent, embarrassed, lowering her head while Her Majesty tries to calm the girl, telling her that they don't need formalities and that this is nothing. The Empress says that today is the same day indicated in the letter, so they should not hesitate, and she offers to leave right away. The main character remembers with panic that now, most likely, her father is sleeping without his hind legs, and the estate is in complete disarray, and there isn't even any human food left in it. The girl, surprised at how this family doesn't maintain ceremonious about decisions, and reluctantly going right now, asks to reschedule the meeting because the father is clearly not ready to receive guests. The Empress, taking her by the shoulders, tells her that she knows about the situation her family is in. She smiles playfully and says that this meeting is not just a greeting of the families, but a warning, because the girl will soon become part of the imperial family, and the Archduchess cannot live in such conditions. The woman suggests that this is the best time to properly scold her father, and find the estate in its worst state, in ruins and filth. After all, if you announce the imperial family's visit, the Viscount will definitely hide the whole truth by cleaning up and preparing. Ivella, after thinking for a couple of seconds, nods because in this case now is indeed the most opportune moment. The woman replies cheerfully to her answer by taking her hand, leading her to the door, and telling her that she needs to get ready to leave, to which Ivella is surprised that she is also leaving. Her Majesty grabs the doorknob, opens it in front of Ivla, and says she needs to show her father that the girl is not at all what she was before. The main character sees before her a large room full of luxurious dresses, where the woman allows her to choose any brazenly. Meanwhile, the Viscount opens the door and, looking for Rebel, shouts that he is starving from the desire that the girl does something about it. However, looking around the room more carefully, he does not notice her presence, and gets even angrier. The man furiously wonders why she hasn't returned home yet, clenching his fists in anger because she should respect him and indulge his whims. Suddenly, he remembers seeing Ivla being taken in a carriage to the Archduke's estate last night. The man kept wondering what she was doing at night since she disappeared from home. He imagines a picture of Ibella enjoying a secret rendezvous with the Archduke at night. The Viscount thinks that now they are connected with the imperial family, which means he will finally be able to live in abundance and enjoy luxury for the rest of his life. The man opens the estate doors. Excited, the time has finally come to reap the fruits of his labor. So he decides to celebrate. But to his surprise, in front of the estate, there is a carriage from which Ibel steps down with the Duke of Duranta. He is happy that Sistine brought Rebel home, but looks at the second carriage suspiciously, wondering who is there. Finally, the door opens and the Empress Dowager appears from the carriage, upon which the Viscount freezes in shock. He wonders what is going on, but as everyone approaches, he kneels down and says that it is a great honor for him to greet Her Highness the Empress Dowager and His Grace the Archduke. He feverishly tries to understand why they suddenly decided to visit him when His Highness, opening her fan, replies that the servant is dressed to the nines, but that she needs the Viscount. The main character smiles broadly, realizing how hard it was, seeing his father frozen in place from humiliation, while Her Majesty enters the estate demanding that the Viscount greet her personally. When the man gets up, he approaches her and tells her that he is the Viscount. The Empress is already seated at the table with her son and Ivla when the Viscount, with a smile, and trying to hold back, admits that today's meal is quite simple. The man extends his hand, offering to enjoy the food. On the table there are dishes with onion pasta and something else suspicious. The food is clearly moldy and even looks terrible. Her Majesty pokes a piece with her fork in disgust when she asks if they always have this kind of food. To which the Viscount affirms that today they paid more attention to the food than usual. The woman puts down her fork without eating a bite and sighs, saying that this is one more reason to celebrate the wedding as soon as possible. To which the man exclaims, happily asking if she heard correctly. Her Majesty nods, expressing her desire to hold a wedding between her daughter and Sixteen, asking if the Viscount objects to this union, to which the man denies everything. Radiant with happiness, he says he is just worried that his daughter is not worthy of the Archduke, which clearly irritates Ivla. The Empress now looks at the Viscount with disgust, pointing out that it is not Rebel who should worry. The man makes a fool of himself, asking what else bothers her, to which the protagonist silently closes her eyes with irritation, letting the Empress tell him everything. Her Majesty confirms that she has anxiety and cites him as the reason for it. The Viscount, still not understanding anything, wonders why he is a problem. The Empress cannot stand reflecting for so long on the reason, explaining directly and in simple language that it is possible because the man has bad habits. He finally understands what the woman is talking about and remembers gambling. To everything that is happening, Rebel finally raises her voice, begging her father to stop having anything to do with it. The man is surprised that his daughter dared to contradict him when Her Majesty reproaches him not only for wasting all of Rebel's savings, but also those that were for food and other basic necessities. When the Viscount is reprimanded, Ibel and the Archduke silently agree with every word, sitting and looking at him arguing. The Empress explains that now that Rebel is part of the imperial family, they cannot stand aside. So if he does not express his desire to change, she will have to force him, after which she asks him what his decision is. The Viscount fearfully agrees, promising never to go near the casino again, and stop gambling under Ivla's surprised gaze. The main character remembers how many times she begged him not to spend money, or to leave what he had for food, taking money from her. Unfortunately for her, this never helped, which made her father angry, and feel unhappy because she criticized his actions. Ivla, seeing how everything was decided now, in the blink of an eye, came to the conclusion that being an archduchess was not as bad as she had imagined. Upon leaving the estate, Sistine reports that everything is decided to return to order, while the heroine remembers what kind of order it is. She remembers what he says about the Night Order because, in the original novel, he was the commander-in-chief there. And Bella presents Sistine's schedule, thinking that the life of the common people is small. After all, she spent the first day meeting with her, and then with the Empress. And finally, she spent the second day with the Viscount and Vila, and now she is going to work. The girl asks him if everything will be fine at his job, because she hasn't eaten anything. To which the man replies that he ate what the Viscount served him. The heroine remembers with horror the sight of the food, and realizes that it contained ingredients that were at least 10 days old, if not more. Sistine asks if everything is fine, to which the girl replies not knowing what to tell the person who ate all this horror. She feels guilty, although she wasn't the one who cooked the pasta, so she tries to fix things by offering to bring the man lunch. But he refuses and opens his mouth in surprise when the Empress realizes all this. A woman approaches them and asks Sistine if he is happy that his wife wants the man to be full, and offers to chat with them while they eat, trying to rectify the situation. To this he again refuses, rejecting Ivla twice already, who gives up trying to approach. However, Sistine, upon getting into the carriage, explains that he just had breakfast and that's why he refuses. But he doesn't mind having lunch together in order, telling her that if she wants to talk to him, he will send the carriage for the girl. When he leaves, leaving Ivla behind, she turns to the Empress with a smile, grateful that she helped her. Her Majesty bids farewell to the heroine, expressing her desire to stay longer. But business cannot wait, so she is leaving, to which the girl thanks her for the visit. Once again, she expresses her gratitude to the woman, because thanks to her, her father promised to quit gambling. And she definitely wouldn't have managed without her. Her Majesty opposes this, reminding her that she is now the Archduchess of this empire. And that Sistine's absence or closeness will not change the fact that the girl now has power. She takes the girl's hands and tells her to get used to the power, because no one will underestimate Ivla anymore. Her Majesty turns to leave, releases the heroine, and finally says that in a month is the right time for the wedding. In her opinion. And Bella is surprised because preparations should take a long time, to which the woman getting into the carriage explains that preparations will begin immediately, and that the wedding will be announced today. In response to the girl's surprised questions, Her Majesty says that it will be more fun this way, and asks if Reporter Belle can handle that task. And Bella understands that the news of her marriage to the Archduke has not yet been made public. And they just decided the wedding date, the information about the exact date, only she knows it. And the Empress, the main character, opposes, because in this situation, if she writes an article today, she will completely give herself away. Her Majesty smiles playfully, covering herself with her fan, which gives Ivla the chills. So this is what the Empress was trying to achieve. The woman, knowing that the heroine will not like it, says that if she does not want to write this article, Her Majesty can entrust it to journalist Shu. The Empress reveals that she left information about Shu in Ivla's room, so she will have to make a decision after seeing it. Her Majesty bids farewell to the girl, wishing her good luck on her lunch date, while the carriage drives away. And she leaves. Ivla says goodbye in response after she, stunned, reflects on her words. The task of reporter Shu's article is not only that, but it also sounds suspiciously like a threat. The girl sighs and decides to find out who this reporter Shu is first, and then make a final decision. She returns to the estate and meets her father at the door, who, worried, states that they need to talk as soon as possible. And that now would be better. And Bella tiredly suggests that she wants to talk about gambling when the Viscount's face lights up with joy. Angry and hurried, she walks past him and tells him that she has nothing to talk to him about on this topic. The Viscount turns to her with rage, calling her a brat and about to add insults. As soon as Ivla hears her father's insult, she asks him to repeat his words, imitating the Empress's look and pose, thus quickly appeasing the man's ardor, who falls silent. The protagonist cheerfully goes up the stairs, and it is true that it is time for her to get used to power, because no one else will dare to humiliate the girl. And Bella sits down at the table eagerly, realizing that she is in a very good mood with her new power. She picks up the letter after opening it, wanting to know the identity of reporter Shu. The girl quickly scans the text, while her facial expression changes from joy to irritation. And Bella slams the letter onto her palm with a thud, claiming that this is some kind of madness. Because in the report, there is a photograph of a lady who recently got engaged to Roland. In the end, it turned out that both have pseudonyms because reporter Melly publishes minor rumors. And sensational stories belong to the pen of reporter Shu. And Bella bitterly scolds them with a look, telling herself that such disgusting articles and reporters tarnish the reputation of others. She is about to crumple the letter when she sees one of the articles about her where she is again called a spinster. She becomes furious and yells throughout the estate as soon as they dare to publish such articles about her. And Bella, realizing that she was trying to compete with her, sat down at the table and prepared a pen and paper to write an article. A bright-eyed girl writes an article saying that Lady Bella will soon announce sensational news because she appeared, and declared that love is the dawn of youth and that she will not renounce marriage. The main character has finished replying to journalist Shu's article, and this is an exclusive sensation. After thinking for a couple more minutes, the girl realizes that the interview itself means little, and that someone more authoritative's words are needed here. After some time, the heroine opens the door and asks if the knight is here. After all, the Empress herself gave him to the girl before, arguing that the Archduchess needed a knight for protection. A bodyguard knight known as the Shadow appeared in front of her, and Her Majesty picked her up very quickly and efficiently. She expresses her desire to go somewhere and asks him to accompany her, to which the bodyguard of course agrees. And Bella asks not to address her with so much respect, as it would be more convenient for the girl. But the knight refuses, to which she resignedly tells him where she needs to be escorted. After some time, the protagonist finds herself in the protocol department, where she ordered to be taken. The carriage arrives at a large building and stops right in front of it. The girl looks at the building with admiration. All the Empire's protocols are here. She never thought she would come here for such a reason. And Bella looks around. She needs to complete all her affairs as soon as possible, because she has a dinner with the Archduke when she hears a man calling her. The bodyguard, in response to the man's questions, pushes him away with his hand, informing him that this is Her Highness the Archduchess and demanding respect be shown. While Ivla is glad that she doesn't need to enter the building now. The man objects because His Highness is not yet married to her, and she lies. But she freezes in surprise when she sees the permit the main character shows him. After what he saw, he abruptly changes his behavior and bows, apologizing for his rudeness, and asking what brought Ivla here. The girl reports that recently rumors about her wedding have been spreading, and that she needs help from the protocol department. The man readily agrees to do anything for Her Highness the Archduchess. Ivla is happy that everything went well and takes out a camera, wanting to take a picture of the man and send it to the reporter. After a while, she finishes writing the article just in time for the deadline, exhaling relief and happiness. The girl reviews the article, although brief, but with an interview with an employee of the protocol department, and photographs. Anyone will believe that her wedding is somehow connected to the imperial family. The protagonist, having sealed the article, is happy that all that remains is to send it when the bodyguard reports that his crew has arrived. And Bella realizes with horror that if she wants the article to be published today, she must deliver it immediately to the press agency. The man bows to her, seeing her excitement, and promises that he will deliver her article to the agency. And she had better leave. The girl, relieved, thanks him, hands him the envelope, and tells him to make sure the article is published immediately. As she walks down the stairs, she realizes that he said her article, so the man knows she is a reporter. But he was supposed to be just a bodyguard. The knights see a carriage at the door and wonder if someone was supposed to arrive today. One of the men notices that he is not sure, but the carriage looks like the one belonging to the Archduke's house. And Bella smilingly leaves, realizing that it is not just any visitor, but the Archduchess herself. While standing at the door, the knights ask for a visitor log to know whether to let the girl in or not, while she thinks that no one was notified of her arrival. When an unfamiliar voice is heard, saying that the log is not necessary, and introduces himself as the Deputy Commander-in-Chief. Eider asks the heroine to follow him. The knight leads her inside the fortress, while the girl examines the large stone walls that give the knight order the appearance of a real fortress. And Bella imagined everything a little differently because, since Sistine invited her here, she thought it would be as luxurious here as in his residence. The heroine is led to the dining room, where the knights greet the girl while she queues. When she looks around bewildered, not expecting the dining room to look so normal. And Bella looks disappointed when Sistine appears behind her and informs them that they also need to queue. She obediently stands next to him with a bad premonition, but without saying a word, waiting quietly for her turn. The girl wonders if the food will be tasty. When the cook approaches and takes her plate to serve the food, she sighs, resigned because it is unlikely there is anything tasty in such a dining room. The main character thinks that the menu here should be the same as in a normal dining room. When the cook announces that today's menu includes crab soup with chicken broth, Ibel is shown and served plates of fried noodles with shrimp and spiced lobster. They wish Ibel bon appetit while she looks at her plate in surprise, and her stomach is already rumbling. Sistine thanks the heroine for coming, sits at the table, and asks her if she likes the food. The protagonist, with tears in her eyes, eats everything she was given, and replies that she has never eaten such delicious food in her life, to the man's surprise. The girl asks to take some food away and asks if she can pack it, smiling happily when Sistine agrees. The man, with a calm breath, starts a conversation with the desire to discuss something with Ivla, and specifically, their future life together. The girl brings the spoon to her mouth and asks about their life together, when suddenly they tense up at the serious expression on Sistine's face. The Duke explains that, since their union is somewhat different from that of other noble couples, he cannot promise her a honeymoon period. The main character imagines the honeymoon period before her eyes, of how he feeds her, or how a man chases after her. Sistine apologizes for only telling her about this now, to which the girl assures him that everything is fine. She assures him that everything is fine and that he should not worry because a man like the Archduke is very busy. And they cannot be together just because they are newlyweds. The heroine already realizes that it would be problematic if everything were the other way around, because it is unlikely that she could then work as a reporter. She beams with luck and says she can handle it very well. Sistine, noticeably annoyed by this, replies that he is glad since the girl likes this, to which he tries to rectify the situation by saying that he misunderstood her. And Bella explains that even as a couple, both need personal space and should not limit each other in anything. The Archduke agrees with this because it is fair, while the girl picks up a glass of water to drink because, after so much talking, her throat is dry. Sistine says there are exceptions, and that includes their nightly activities. The heroine suddenly chokes on the water and spits it out in shock. She approaches the Duke and blushes, lowers her voice and asks if they will and if he will really go. Sistine explains that he knows her story and that she wants revenge on Roland, and Evil does not deny it. But she imagined their life together completely differently, because while they were together, they had to say phrases like, "Let's live happily ever after," or they would overcome all difficulties together. The main character thinks this is right, but the fact that Sistine suggests using their marriage to take revenge is not. The girl sincerely admits that she wants revenge and all that, but she doesn't want to carry it out, taking advantage of the wedding in the name of a personal vendetta. After all, Roland is in the past now. Revenge on such a person should not be more important than their common future with Sistine. The man doubtfully expresses that he thought the girl proposed marriage to him only to take revenge. And Bella confirms that it is indeed so, but this is only the original plan. Now that they are really getting married, she has changed her priorities. Now it is more important for her to live a happy and luxurious life with Sistine despite the past. The heroine says that this is what is normally expected of married life, and asks him not to forget anything when getting up from the table. And Bella asks not to link the word use and wedding before Sistine's bewildered gaze. She smiles at him, tells him that these words seem too cold to her, and asks his opinion on this matter, calling him her Duke. A black glow appears next to him on Sistine's chest, and he replies that he will remember her words. The man takes her hand and asks her for a favor. He says her name with a smile and asks her to call him that now. When the meal is over, the heroine goes out the door, stands next to it and puts her hands on her heart, blushing, not understanding why he suddenly asks her to call him by his name. And with that smile. And Bella perplexedly remembers his smile was so unexpected that she didn't immediately understand that he was showing some kind of emotion. And indeed, if you think about it this way, the Empress said that when he was a child. Sistine laughed and cried a lot. The girl understands that the point is not that he doesn't know how to express emotions, but that he represses them. But there must be a reason why he does this. And Bella must find out the reason so she can help him become more emotional, but her thoughts are interrupted by a knock on the door. A knight brings her a special assignment for the evening newspaper. The girl approaches him as the man explains that her article was published exclusively, and that currently newspapers are being distributed in the square and delivered to every home. The heroine thanks him and then smiles slyly, because this means that both Shu and Benica have now seen the article about Ivla, and they are waiting to see what she will answer. Meanwhile, on the Dilanov estate, Shu, after reading the article, becomes indignant. But he believes what is written because, since the protocol department is involved, it's true. The girl with these thoughts goes out into the street, but even there she hears townspeople whispering about the fake article. And she promises never to trust journalist Shu again. She is furious and panicking because the article declaring her a spinster will ruin her reputation. So she decides to withdraw it. Meanwhile, Ivla laughs at the boutique advertisement on the front page because it's something new. The girl thinks that, given how quickly the advertisement was published, Venica is probably somehow connected to this boutique. And she decides to keep this article just in case. But suddenly, the heroine hears words about an article from somewhere and shudders when a bodyguard appears nearby. Pointing to the window, she approaches him, looking at the crowd of journalists below who want to ask the girl all the details. And they interrupt her. The bodyguard calms her down by telling her that if she wishes, he will send them all away very quickly. And they won't bother her anymore. And Bella sighs in relief, wondering why she was so tense and inviting the man to go have breakfast. The man wonders if everything will be fine if she leaves the crowd of people like that. To which the girl assures him that if you don't pay attention to them, they will fall behind, so you can leave everything as it is. And Bella laughs nervously because if it weren't for being the heroine of that article, she would definitely be standing there among them with the desire to know more information. So mentally wishing them good luck, she leaves for breakfast. The main character goes down the stairs, smells the wonderful smell of food, and wonders what it is. She looks towards the kitchen and sees a man cooking something for her in a pan and wonders who he is. The girl, to her surprise, discovers a cook from the order, who with a smile tells her about the dishes he has prepared, specifically a light stewed beef salad and cornbread. The heroine turns to the bodyguard in surprise and asks bewilderedly what the cook is doing here when she finds out that His Highness sent him here this morning. The bodyguard also hands her a letter saying that the Archduke gave it to her. Upon unfolding it, Bella reads that he asked for staff. Sistine sent him, and from now on he will be her personal chef. The man wants her to enjoy a delicious meal. The protagonist does not remember asking for a cook when she recalls her sentence to take some away during the meal. She looks at the richly set table, noticing that the dishes here are serious, and now she will also have to get used to this. Because all her life, because of her father, she practically ate leftovers. And Bella sits down at the table eager to enjoy her food when she starts eating. But she notices that the man has not touched the food and is standing in the same place. She asks why he is not eating. The hero replies that he already had breakfast, but why Bella did not see the man leave his post. So she pinches off a piece and asks him when he had time. The girl brings a forkful of food to his face, to which he replies that he just ate. But the heroine adapts and asks if this is true. The man replies affirmatively with confidence, but his loudly growling stomach betrays him. Finally, the man says he will join her and Ivla laughs satisfied, wishing him to eat properly. Privately proud of the fact that she couldn't work in front of the Korean on an empty stomach. While eating, the main character, looking at him, remembers that she never asked his name. She only knows his nickname. And really, all she knew about her bodyguard was that he was a close associate of the Empress. And he knew her secret, but since he already knows everything, she has nothing to lose. And Bella leans towards him and asks him her question with a smile. The man introduces himself as number 109, which bewilders the heroine. But he very calmly says that she can call him that. She tries to get him to talk with astonishment about how there can be a number instead of a name. And who would like that? But the girl recoils sharply, remembering that such people really exist in the novel. The novel mentions that there is a secret intelligence service of the Empress. And the names of the shadows. The girl knows that these are close associates of the Empress, to whom numbers are given instead of names. And since childhood, they are trained to become the Empress's invisible protection. The main functions of these shadows include espionage, surveillance, and execution. The work of these people, of course, is not as rewarding as that of the knights. but they are completely dedicated to it. After all, everyone sincerely believes that this is the only way to repay the Empress for taking them under her protection. A long time had passed since Ivla read the novel, so now she only remembered such important information. The man explains that he is not an ordinary knight, and so that the truth about his personality does not leak out. Her Majesty sent her shadow. The girl asks what else the Empress ordered, to which the hero replies that he needs to take care of the girl and ensure the successful fulfillment of the request she entrusted to Ivla. The heroine cautiously points out that taking care of her is, of course, a beautiful word. But in reality, it is spying on her and clarifies that he will take care of her until she fulfills her request. Having received an affirmative answer, she sighs, realizing that they will have to coexist for a long time. And she offers to give the bodyguard a name. The man looks at her bewildered, but also inspired, when Ibella says that it would be strange to call him by his number in public. The hero agrees, because if that is His Highness's wish, the girl can call him whatever she wants. And Bella thinks about his name, and since his name is 109, she decides to suggest the name 9, to which the man nods his head. The girl is happy that he accepted the name and extends her hand, saying that although it is late, she is delighted to meet you. Nain looks at her bewilderedly, because she offered him food and now she wants to shake his hand. He shakes her hand in response, silently promising to serve her faithfully for her kind attitude towards him. Soon the journalists leave Ivla's house, to which she replies with relief that they finally realized that she will not talk to them. The girl sits in a chair when Nine asks her if she has any plans for today, to which she receives a negative answer. In this case, he invites the heroine to visit His Highness the Archduke, to which the girls, reluctantly, they excuse themselves saying they met him yesterday, and the remaining journalists might bother her. The hero states that he will take care of everyone, showing them the blade of his sword. And Bella looks askance at him suspiciously, asking him to wait and guessing that this is not so. She asks if His Majesty ordered her to be kept closer to Sistine. Looking at the man who turned his back on her, without saying anything, she understands that everything is as she thought. And getting up from the table, she agrees to go to the meeting. The main character says she wouldn't mind a quick visit to the Archduke. The Duke sits down at the table reading an article about Ibel, sighing in disgust because he can no longer avoid the fact that all articles will be about them after their marriage. He puts down the newspaper when he feels her presence nearby and turns towards the door. The hero grabs the door handles, opens them, and sees Ibel, who is about to knock on the door. The girl looks at him inquisitively, not understanding how he opened the door exactly at the moment she wanted to enter. She enters the room asking if the Duke knew about her arrival and how he found out she was here. Sistine, with a calm expression on his face, replies that he simply felt her presence nearby. And Bella looks at him confused and now wonders if he is flirting with such a stony expression on his face that it is hard to guess. The heroine decides to ignore this by entering his room and asking if she was in the way. Looking at him sitting down and taking the newspaper in his hand, Sistine replies that no, he simply continues reading the exclusive edition of the newspaper when Ibella sees her article in his hands. A little scared, she asks him how often he reads newspapers, to which she receives a negative answer. However, he immediately added that what interested him were the articles by reporter Bell. So he decided to read the news that was there. The man addresses Ibella, inviting her to read the article together, to which she freezes in fear. Not knowing what to do, and timidly agrees. The protagonist takes the newspaper pretending surprise, because she was so surprised that they asked her for an interview. And then they published an article. Sistine nods and says he is an exceptional reporter, especially when it comes to him. And Bella, trying to get out of the situation, says that his name is not in the article, which means that Belle barely knows that the girl's fiancé is the Archduke. The man denies it and explains that if the protocol department is involved, he probably knows that Ibella is going to marry Sistine and assumes that Belle conducted the interview mentioning his name. The man is lost in thought because it is very difficult to gather information about the Ray grass. And their marriage. She really must be an exceptional person. He turns to the main character and asks if she has met journalist Belle, and if she knows what he looks like. The girl tenses up and quickly replies that she has never met the reporter, to which Sistine says that, since Belle interviewed the girl, he can at least briefly describe him. She understands that she cannot tell the details and, composing herself, decides to lie because, by his behavior, he doesn't know for sure that it's her. The main character says that, considering the nature of the profession, it was not wise to show her face, so Belle came in a cape. Sistine sighs, nods, and replies that this could really happen and that nothing can be done about it. The protagonist is worried about something else. She doesn't ask anything, that she granted an interview without the Duke. To which he affirmatively replies. But the girl is still nervous because she allowed the article to be published without consulting Sistine. And Bella again decides to apologize because they did not announce the wedding, but went to an interview and, due to the intervention of the protocol department, suspicions fell on the man. She panics imagining how angry he will be, but she just started getting close to him. And now everything is in vain. But to the girl's surprise, Sistine replies that there is no need to apologize because she is not obliged to consult him on all matters. And Ivla does not need to worry about his opinions and feelings. He tells her to do what is best for her, to which the girl wonders what Sistine means. The man repeats himself saying that she should say to do whatever she wants and not think about him. To which Ivla, bewildered, asks him again. Sistine says she can use the marriage as she wishes. Since he uses her, then the girl should do the same. Ivla is still bewildered as to why the Archduke can use her, because she has no fortune or influence and, moreover, she has no special skills. The girl imagines how she protects the Duke from love letters and conversations about marriage, telling him that she is his wife. The heroine decides not to guess for long, but talks to Sistine, and tells him that she doesn't know what he's going to use her for. But the girl firmly takes his hand and offers to help each other at the expense of this marriage. They are now a married couple, which means they can help each other in small things. Or not. Therefore, the main character does not like that Sistine pretends to remain just a tool for each other. And Bella continues holding his hand, saying it is better to say that they help each other, and that they don't use each other, and asks to replace this word. And Bella moves away from him, sighing disappointedly and reminding him that she asked not to use the word use. Or that he lied, saying he would be more attentive. Sistine blushes and looks at his hand, keeping silent because there is nothing to say. And Bella calms the man's magic, and he helps her take revenge. It turns out that marriage is based on mutual interests. That's why in such relationships, it's better to draw lines on how he thinks. However, the hero is increasingly perplexed because he rejects revenge and says that it is more important for a girl to live happily with him than to take revenge. Sistine wonders why she expects something that is not destined for them, replying that he did not lie. And if the girl doesn't like this word, he will replace it. The Duke gets up and approaches her, telling her that this time he will indeed be more considerate, but wondering if she will treat him the same way when she finds out how he is using the main character. And Bella gratefully nods and then replies that in that case she will consult with him. And she closely monitors his words that this is not necessary until he agrees. It is already night, and the girl leaves the estate completely exhausted as the last of her energy leaves her. Nine asks her with a smile if she had a good time, to which she replies with a silent yes. She recalls what happened and adds, with a strained smile, that everything was wonderful. To which Nine is happy and tells her that he will take her home. And Bella sleeps with no one while they return home. Nain notices a coachman who seems familiar to him and a carriage he has seen too often. But the man does not have to guess for long because the carriage doors open. And Roland's bastard steps out. And Bella, who has already woken up, is arguing with Nain whether it is worth giving way to the Viscount, because that is how it should be done. But then her eyes light up, and she asks the man if they will really give way to her sworn enemy. The hero, bowing, replies that he will do whatever His Highness desires. And it is true that the girl now feels power, because she is no longer who she was before. But the Archduchess is more important in this regard now. But the wedding was not officially announced, which means the truth cannot be revealed and. However, it is a matter of principle. The Viscount greets Rebel with an unpleasant smile, while the heroine promises herself not to yield to him, even despite the difference in status. The girl smiles and says that she is not happy to meet him, and that just seeing him makes her feel sick. The Viscount immediately shows his true colors by asking the girl why she should disgrace herself. He places his hand on her shoulder, stating that she probably understands that she is upset because things did not go according to his plan. And he mocks her for taking the man's joke too seriously. This infuriates the girl, who replies that she did not believe that his daily visits and every night meant a relationship without obligations. She angrily asks him how people who want to get married should behave in a hall hidden from prying eyes. The Viscount exclaims in panic on his face as she starts running towards him. But a sharp blade at her throat stops him. Nine defends the girl by covering her with himself and asking how the Viscount dares to raise a sword against the Duke when he hears a woman's voice calling him. A girl, Roland's wife Benick, runs out of the carriage looking at what is happening. And Bella frowns desperately, but on a day where all the people she cannot stand have gathered in one place. Roland asks Benicca to stay in the carriage when she approaches the man asking him to calm down and stop all this by giving way to Ivla. The man is tense because his wife is behaving strangely, but he pushes those thoughts aside by kissing her on the cheek and telling her that he will do whatever she wants. Roland returns to Ibella with a smile, informing her that he will do anything for Benick. Looking at how the girl and her bodyguard are holding back the urge to vomit from the scene seen earlier. But finally, the man calls Ibella and asks her about her wedding if she took another man's joke seriously, and if the girl's empty talk caused him a lot of inconvenience. Inconvenience? The Viscount continues saying that he simply fears that more victims will appear due to Ivla's misunderstanding, while the girl approaches the Viscount's wife. Benicca tries to stop her husband, but Ivla interrupts her by telling her that she has nothing to worry about because the protocol department confirmed the girl's marriage. She sees Roland's perplexed face and his wife, who lowers her head without saying anything, gloating. The main character smiles upon realizing that he did not read the article and says with a malicious glance that the man must have missed the photo while reading her interview with interest. And Bella assumes that the Viscount only knows rumors, but his wife definitely read the article and realized how Benicca was heading to the carriage. Roland quickly runs after his wife as the main character and her bodyguard are left behind. She invites Nain to go ahead too. He obeys, and finally they continue on their way. The protagonist, sitting in the carriage, thinks that she has preserved her pride and seen their distorted faces. But she still feels bad. She, looking out the window, assumes that all this is due to the kiss she saw. But suddenly, she realizes what is happening inside the Viscount's carriage. The girl places her hand on the glass, remembering that just a week ago the place where she is sitting now was Vanica's. The protagonist never doubted for a minute a happy future with Roland. It seemed to her that she would sit with him in the carriage and dance at the ball for the rest of her life. Who could have predicted that her future husband would change her so easily for another girl? But the girl calms down now that there is no turning back. She does not regret anything. Her rose-colored glasses were taken off, and the girl saw how pathetic Roland really is. And Bella remembers Satina and realizes that now she has met someone 100. No, 1,000 times better. And although it will take time for her to get close to that person, she is willing to spend it to be happy. The heroine, now walking home, sighs deeply, and when Naina asks her what is bothering her, she replies that she regrets not throwing something at the Viscount's head. To which the man offers to fulfill her request if she orders him to which the girl interrupts him by refusing such help. Upon seeing him take out a weapon, the girl takes note that she must be more careful with her words, because if she somehow makes a bad joke, she could make someone lose their head. Nine wonders if Bella will leave everything as it is, but the girl says that he will never get away so easily because he treated her simply disgustingly. She says she will take revenge on him in a different way. She will simply do what she was good at in her past life. And now she will expose the corruption of the Dellin family. The next morning, the girl picks up a camera, a notebook, and a pen to fulfill her promise. She dresses simply and turns in front of the mirror to check if she forgot anything. A second later, the heroine remembers that she forgot the most important thing, and a pink section appears around her. And butterflies, and she reincarnated when she came to this world. She already knew the local language. And she knew how to transform. Now a completely different girl stands in front of the mirror, and only the color of her eyes matches her previous appearance. The heroine looks at herself in the mirror, rejoicing at such an ability for a journalist like her. From behind the door, Nine's call is heard, asking if Ivla is ready. To which she replies positively, getting ready to go out. But she realizes with horror that she overlooked an important detail: how to explain the transformations to a man now. Because he knows she is a reporter, but he knows her abilities. Meanwhile, Nine behind the door is perplexed by the voice that just answered him, and persistently asks if everything is fine. The heroine, meanwhile, no longer listens to his questions, wondering if she should keep her abilities a secret. Or if he knows everything. In the end, she decides to cancel the reincarnation. Nine breaks down the door because he thinks something happened to His Highness. He stands there confused when she calls him Nine and fearfully tries to think of something. The man approaches her and asks if she just reincarnated. And Bella understands that he found out everything, so there is no point in hiding anything anymore. The girl tells the plan for the day. She enters the Dillon property to investigate the workers. While Nine, having repaired the door, stands near her and listens. The man asks with interest what kind of workers, and receives the answer that they are not ordinary workers. And common ones, it's just that Roland called them that. The girl says that she often visited the Dillon property when she knew Roland, and that some men often interacted with him. From time to time, the man would step away, talking to them about money and about how talented they were at earning money. Roland looked forward to the moment he could work with them, interacting with these men as friends. Roland expressed his desire to work with them together when he heard their conversations. And lost money, and most of the time they were the unfortunate merchants. When the girl asked what kind of people they were, he really didn't explain anything. He simply called them employees and dropped the subject. If a man called them that, it means they are not ordinary workers. But because she was blinded by love, then she didn't notice anything suspicious. The conversations about money and workers, which rather sounded like bandits, only alerted the girl later, when she came to her senses. And the most interesting thing for her was that Roland was somehow connected to everything that was happening, which was very suspicious. And Bella exclaims that she smells corruption from a mile away when Nine nods his head. Listening to her and wondering how she is going to investigate this, to which the protagonist explains that she will infiltrate their ranks. And she will meet an employee. The man is surprised that the girl was going to investigate this personally. But that doesn't stop him from entrusting the investigation to no one but herself. He bows to her and promises that the shadows will be more alert, and Bella wonders why he talks about himself in the plural when he waves his hand to the side. Several men immediately appear in front of the main character and greet her on their knees. She jumps up in horror and asks Nain who these people are and where they came from. To which she receives the answer that they have been here since the day of the visit of Her Majesty, the Empress. The girl holds her head in shock, but on the other hand, it is really as if the Empress herself assigned her only one servant. But Naina was enough all this time. The man explains that in the large Dillon domain, she might not be able to manage alone in case of emergency. And this explains why there are so many shadows. Naim asks to understand why the Empress ordered the future Archduchess's safety to be maximally guaranteed. The heroine agrees, but on the condition that they all dress appropriately. To which the man asks her not to worry. Immediately all shadows change clothes, and although they are not as good at transforming as the main character, now they are unrecognizable because they look like ordinary inhabitants. 9 remembers one more thing. He hands the girl a bag from the Empress and tells her that this is for Ivla to complete her task accurately. The protagonist opens the bag in shock, holding it in her hands after seeing that it is completely full of coins. To which 9 explains that it is for work expenses. 9 says that His Highness is eagerly awaiting Ivla's next article, and although the girl feels a bit of pressure now that she has so much money, which means the plan can be adjusted a little. He asks all shadows to gather around him to explain a new plan to them. And simpler. Now in the Dilanov real estate market, Ivla is sitting behind a box of apples. A few hours earlier, she, after explaining the plan to the shadows, saw their open mouths and their reaction of surprise. Indeed, there is something to be surprised about here, because the main character, and in the future the Archduchess, will become a merchant. A girl shouts in the market, attracting buyers only with collected red apples. 9 expresses concern about Ibella's plan, because she herself said that the workers harass the merchants, and that it is unsafe. The girl agrees that the plan is dangerous, and that is why she must carry it out. After all, if it is an ordinary merchant, the workers themselves will approach her, thinking that it is easy money. She explains that this way she won't have to go around the whole market, asking everyone for some information. In addition to all of the above, it is much easier to interview under someone else's identity. So she assures Nina that everything will be fine, especially since the shadows are always by her side. The girl supposes that everyone agrees and says that they will need a cart, fruit, and a permit to trade. They already have a cart, so only 2 points remain. A merchant shouts in the market, attracting buyers only with collected red apples. They summon 2 shadows to transport the cart to the Dillon estate when the girl leaves it. She remembers that a permit to trade is still needed when 9 says he will do it with a tired face, because he can imagine how painful it will be. The main character takes care of buying fruit, takes a bag with money, and moves. Everyone already gathered at the gate of the Dilanov property, the girl loads apples onto a cart and asks 9 for permission to trade. And Bella thanked everyone quite a bit for the work done when they bowed to her, and they replied that they were only following orders. 9 wonders what they should do. The shadows, while the girl puts her plan into action. The heroine tells them to stay close and promises that if workers appear, she will inform them immediately. An old woman approaches Bella, asks how much the apples cost, and then asks for 3 pieces. The girl says goodbye to her grandmother when she notices with irritation that the trade is going too well. She has been standing there for an hour and there isn't a single sign of workers, but she just sold a bunch of apples. The girl takes everything into her hands, because one cannot fool around all day peeling apples, and decides that she herself will talk to the merchants. The main character approaches the merchant with a plate of apples, greets him, and tells him that she is new here but would like to meet you. In absolutely everything, the merchants ignore her or chase her away as if they were afraid of something, or they avoid her for being a stranger. And Bella, desperate, realizes that if she wants to know something, then she needs to start a normal conversation, at least with someone, when she hears the girl's voice. The girl asks Ivla if it is really her first time here, when the main character nods, and explains that she wants to try her luck in a big market. The girl tenses up, looks at Ivla, and suggests it's better to try luck in another market. To which the main character shows her a permit, saying she has everything and can trade here. The woman explains to her that the permit was enough before, but now the rules have changed. The girls see 3 men approaching them from behind, demanding another permit from the one who directs the market. Meanwhile, a stack of documents is taken to the Archduke's office, and the knight wonders if the man is really going to do all this today. Sistine nods and says that the wedding is just around the corner and therefore, we must deal with important matters quickly. Besides, within a month he will have to take a week off during the wedding. Eider, after thinking for a couple of seconds, asks if the Archduke would like to visit his estate next week. Sistine wonders if the time for this has come and if he should leave. He usually lives in his villa, and others think he is abandoning it just for business. But the real reason is the monsters that appear there, because to prevent the increase of magic, it must be used. That's why fighting monsters is the most effective way to unleash Sistine's magic. At least it was like that before Ibella appeared, because now his magic is at peace. The man refuses to visit the estate, telling the knight that it is not necessary on the trip. To which he receives a look of surprise. Ither asks about Lady Ibella, if the main character is postponing such an important trip. To which he receives an affirmative answer, because the Archduke's magic stabilizes next to her. The knight anxiously asks the man where the trip should move to which Sistine replies that it does not depend on him, but on how close Lady Ivla is to him. Eider is surprised when the Archduke informs him that the trip is worth postponing indefinitely. And the man does not recognize the former Sixtina, surprised that he is postponing work for the sake of his fiancée. The knight is happy for the man, thinking that now he will feel a little lonely, but happily replies that he will fulfill his request. Upon leaving, Eider asks to tell him everything later, because he is very interested in what kind of person could win the heart of the cold duke. Sistine is lost in thought trying to describe rebel in one word. But it is extremely difficult. And it is difficult to do this precisely, because lately she has been saying and doing unexpected things, embarrassing him. The hero shows repressed emotions when he is with her. The man blushes, realizing that apparently she has really won his heart. And Belle gets caught in a dead end and asks him if it concerns a cart and where her permit is. The girl smiles, dissatisfied and tense, because if these men had arrived a couple of minutes later, she would have ended the conversation with the woman. The main character decides that she herself will find out everything and, pretending to be a group. And innocent, she looks at the man and asks what kind of permit he is talking about. He leans on her shoulder with a grim look, telling her that it is customary here to greet and fill a seat, and being surprised that she doesn't know it. And Bella says that this is the first time she has sold here, so she does not know the rules. When the man moves away from her with disgust, wiping the traces of his presence from her shoulder, the bandit promises to tell her all the traditions of this place, pointing out the people in turn, and telling her that they paid for everything. The man says that this is the price for protecting the market and paying for a place in it. The girl now understands that when she was here with Roland, they were simply extorting poor merchants like real bandits. The main character asks how much she must pay to trade in this market when she hears the price of 3 silver coins. She opens her mouth in shock, indignant. This is 3 weeks' salary for an ordinary city dweller. They are simply robbing people. The bandit explains that since it is her first week, she needs to pay more as a welcome. He explains that in a week the girl will owe 2 coins, and after another week she will owe 1 coin. And she doubts because charging money every week is just a scam when they snatch her bag of money as payment. And they begin to untie it. She screams in disgust, trying to say something to the man when he shakes the bag to take the money. But the man freezes when he sees apple pieces falling into his palm instead of the desired money. And Bella previously left all the money to 9, so she is safe. She looks at the man, who looks clearly angry. He remains silent furiously as he moves away from her, and the heroine wonders if he will really leave her behind. The man approaches her cart and kicks it, knocking down all the apples while. And Bella screams. The girl is trying to save the apples, when the bandit shouts that those who break the traditions of trading in this market are not worthy. He continues yelling at the heroine to give him the money. After some time, she tells 9 everything, who confirms that he really resembles the bandits. The man says that while walking through the market, he heard a woman muttering to herself about bandits, and to make sure the knights would come and take care of it. However, the knights are already patrolling this area. The hero is perplexed how it happened that the market ended up under the roof of bandits. And Bella also realizes the strangeness of what is happening, because even the most inept knights are capable of catching scoundrels operating in the same place every week. The girl assumes that they are deliberately not catching them when she hears the knights shouting as they catch someone. The bandits, seeing the knights, begin to flee quickly, grabbing the money. And Bella sees the men fleeing and orders the shadows to follow them, she herself, and also chase them. Finding herself already in a forest, the girl is trying to catch her breath, having lost sight of her group of bandits when one of the shadows calls her. The girl approaches the place where they are calling her, hiding behind a tree and being carefully in the shadow. She looks from behind the tree. She sees bandits and knights counting the money they earned and dividing it among themselves with smiles. The knights explain that in order to report they need to catch bandits from time to time, or at least pretend to. The protagonist carefully takes out the camera, wanting to capture everything. When she hears a conversation that the rest of the bag is part of Dylan, the girl captures by photographing them the moment the knight hands money to the bandits. She understands that the one who takes the largest share of the money is Roland, because he squeezes all the juice out of the merchants, leaving them with nothing. The more she digs under him, the more dirt comes to light, so she is even grateful that he betrayed the girl. And he will marry Sistine. Now she remembers and asks Nain if he told His Majesty that she would not be home for some time, to which he receives a negative answer. The man asks her if he should contact the Archduke, to which Ivla shakes her head, a little worried that his fiancée left without saying anything. A knight bursts into Sistine's office and calls him by name when the Archduke announces that he wants to meet Ivla. Ader, with panic in his eyes, reports that the fact is that no one can find Lady Ivla. The man explains that after the incident, when Lady Envila's court was filled with reporters, Sistine assigned knights to her. It was they who reported that Lady and Vila were nowhere to be found. The Archduke pales before his eyes, and many questions cross his mind. The man asks Eider exactly when she disappeared, to which the knight replies that in the morning the girl was on the estate. But from her father's words, they learned about her disappearance. The man also reports that there are still some people present on the estate to protect the future Archduchess. But only a few workers left the estate, so no one suspicious was noticed. The man asks the Archduke where he should start looking. Sistine, having thought everything through carefully, rejects the need to look because the shadows are following Rebel. And if something happened, they would definitely report it. He simply asks for a messenger to be sent to Ibel to inform her of the Archduke's desire to meet her when she returns. When the knight leaves the room, Sistine crosses his arms, thinking that it is still strange that no one noticed her. Wherever Rebel goes, she will attract attention, and not just because of the color of her eyes and hair, but because of her way of speaking and behaving, which is not typical of an ordinary aristocrat. Moreover, the knights sent to Ibel's property are not ordinary knights. And common ones, they specialize in observation. According to their observations, they are the best in their business. It cannot be that they did not notice her departure. Sistine interrupts his thoughts upon hearing a knock on the door and telling the man to enter. When they inform him that His Majesty has sent a messenger, Ibel travels on the boat, panics and expresses dissatisfaction that the carriage is moving too slowly despite the sun already setting. 9. Calms her down by telling her that the carriage is already moving at full speed and asking why the girl is so nervous. And Bella replies that she is afraid that Sistine will not find her at home, and if this happens, what should she say in her defense? The man quickly comes up with a simple excuse. She can simply say that she went for a walk and met a friend. The main character leans desperately against the carriage seat when 9 suggests that the simpler the explanation, the better. Ivella agrees with the bodyguard because if she tells him everything in detail, she will only attract suspicion. Hoping that Sistine hasn't arrived, she waits until they get home. Later that night, the main character appears at her estate and is greeted by a maid, informing her that the Archduke has sent someone here. Ivella jumps towards the woman when she speaks about Sistine's desire to see Ivella when she arrives. The girl, embarrassed, asks the maid to tell him that she will arrive tomorrow afternoon, to which she shakes her head, saying that it won't turn out that way. She explains that besides the Archduke, Her Majesty the Empress also sent a person who wanted to meet Ivla. In response to the main character's questions, the maid says that Her Majesty wants to have dinner with Ivla, and that she needs to be at the palace after dinner. The next day, and Bella gets out of the carriage and heads to the palace. She asks Nain where she can find the pavilion when Sistine approaches her from behind. The girl greets Sistine, who tells her it's been a long time since they saw each other. The main character goes with a man to the palace when he asks her where she was. And Bella yesterday, to which she remembers Nain's words and tells him that she simply went for a walk. When the Archduke asks her, she confirms that she was not on the estate and wonders silently how he knows. The girl, with a smile, asks how Sistina's day went when she hears a man's voice, recognizing the Archduke's carriage. She stealthily realizes that it is the aristocrats standing on the stairs whispering about Sistine. And Bella listens, hearing a conversation about some knight. The main character hears them talking about rumors about the Archduke, and covers her ears, humming the syllables aloud to drive away the annoying people. The aristocrats quickly leave and realize that there is someone else close when Sistine, faced with her strange actions, wonders what happened. She timidly points out that there is an ant on her dress, lifting it while a small praying mantis lands on the fabric of her dress. Sistine looks at the ant, saying it is a beetle, scaring Ivla, to which the girl grabs the Archduke's shoulders, shouting. The girl clings to him, looking around to make sure the mantis is no longer there. When she turns her head towards the man, noticing that he is holding her in his arms, the main character blushes embarrassed at first, not even knowing what to say, and then timidly thanks him and apologizes for jumping on him like that. She feels uncomfortable, so she says that the man can leave the IR because he probably weighs a lot. Sistine blushes, objects, and says he will take the girl to the palace because the beetle might follow them. His Majesty smiles seeing such a sight and wonders if the heroes came from the same house, to which Ivla denies everything shyly. The Empress laughs, thanks the young people for their visit, and informs them that the food is ready, inviting them to follow her. When they meet at the table, the girl sees a richly set table with several delicious dishes. When the woman informs that the cooks did not know what she liked, so they made many things. Her Majesty asks how Ivla is because it has been a long time since they saw each other, to which the girl rolls her eyes because she understands that Nain probably informed the Empress of everything, but responding that everything is fine. After His Majesty turns to his son and asks him if everything is fine with him, to which he becomes gloomy, nods, and replies briefly. The main character looks at this perplexedly. This is a normal conversation, but Sistine's facial expression alarms Ivla while the man bows his head, answering that no problems are expected now or in the future. He says dejectedly that he can even send a report every week like before. Ivla looks at Sistine confusedly. He really described each of her actions in the report after sending it to his mother. This is not a joke, she thinks. She feels the tension at the table and the awkward silence, understanding that now someone will have to calm the situation because it is impossible to eat in such an atmosphere. The girl opens her mouth to say or think of something when the Empress precedes her, laughing, smiling, and affirming that a report is not necessary. Her Majesty says that the mere fact of hearing that everything is fine for him makes her happy. She speaks in riddles, reminding Sistine that things are different now. Her Majesty changes the subject and now asks the main character if she has thought about her future actions. Before Ivla's bewildered gaze, the woman reminds her of the revenge against Roland Dillon, wondering if she will carry it out. The girl feels and replies that, of course, she will take revenge, but that she wants to resolve it herself. She says with gratitude that she really appreciates taking care of her family, but she doesn't want to drag them into problems that specifically concern her. His Majesty understands the girl's desire and promises not to interfere, but wonders how she will take revenge. And Bella jumps enthusiastically from the table with a joyful smile, boasting that yesterday she came up with a brilliant plan. But the girl remembers Sistine, sitting next to her, who is not yet aware of her job or her abilities. She denies it, trying to think of something, but ends up saying that she simply forgot her plan. The man, after thinking for a minute with a sinister smile, offers to challenge Roland to a duel. The Archduke says that since his future wife's honor is at stake here, then he, as her husband, has reason to call him, while Ibella watches all this open-mouthed with surprise. The Empress also smiles sinisterly, confirming that it is simply a great idea. Because an honor duel is just that. His Majesty says to move pen and paper so as not to hesitate when Ibella asks to wait with this decision. She quickly tries to find a reason why it is not necessary to organize a duel, and decides to take advantage of the fact that Sistine's opinion does not change due to common sense, but due to his preferences. The girl unleashes a storm of emotions and says that she is very moved by this decision, but that she does not want to hear about bloodshed. In response to the inquisitive looks, the protagonist sheds tears and says that since childhood she has been terrified of seeing blood. So the mere idea of a duel makes her sick. Ivla addresses Sistina and asks him if she is really important to him, not to organize a duel. The man nods and says that if that is the girl's wish, there will be no duel, which greatly confuses the heroine. The Empress points out that she did not know that Ivla was so afraid of blood, and instead of a duel, she offers another option, to bury the hatchet. The protagonist is desperate because every plan is worse than the previous one. She worries that they will bury the Viscount alive. His Majesty smiles slyly and asks for the article to be brought, when Sistine suggests that he wants to bury the news of the wedding. The woman confirms her intentions by showing the article, says that the Count's wedding is scheduled for the 4th, and it will surely attract a lot of attention. His Majesty smiles slyly and suggests what will happen if the Archduke's wedding takes place earlier. For example, on the 3rd. And indeed, if news about the Archduke's wedding comes out, everyone will immediately forget about someone else's wedding of lower status. Roland and Benika's wedding has just started causing a stir, and therefore, it goes without saying that all attention will be focused on Ivla. And Sistine. The wedding of some count is clearly less sensational than such exclusive news as the wedding of a new archduchess. An archduke. Ivla admits that this is only for revenge, but suddenly Sistine says that this is not enough. He expresses his desire to choose a wedding location far from the Dillon estate, where it will take more than a day to get there. The Empress is happy with this proposal because guests will have to choose between 2 weddings. And no one is stupid enough to choose the Count's wedding instead of the Archduke's wedding. While the man continues to count his plan. A wedding forgotten by everyone where not a single guest will be present. Sistine assures that this will greatly harm his reputation. Sistine remembers how, in their first meeting after their wedding night, the girl cried in her sleep, remembering Roland and how much pain he caused her. The man turns to Ivla and wonders if she also thinks that they deserve cruel revenge. The Empress also joins the conversation, confirming that this is an excellent plan, and that she is ready to announce the start of preparations now, when the main character, Gloomy, simply keeps silent. The man turns to her and asks if everything is fine and that it is not convenient for him. When she shakes her head, grabbing the fabric of her dress, everything suits her. But they use the wedding to take revenge, which she really did not want. The Archduke denies it. Now this concerns not only her, but him too. The man has wanted to tell her for a long time. He tells the girl that she will soon officially become an archduchess, and therefore her revenge. And Sistine's revenge too. The man, looking Ivla in the eyes, says that if they speed up the wedding by ruining Roland's vacation, and thus relieving the heroine's pain, then he is ready to take revenge. The hero leans towards her and explains that there is really no need to use words here, and that he just wants to help his wife. The girl blushes and looks at him stunned, not expecting him to perceive this situation that way. And Bella remembers that she told him the same words when they met earlier, discussing the newspaper, and blushes. When the Empress asks her what to do, she smiles cheerfully and nods. If Sistina is happy with everything, then they will act according to her plan. Already leaving the estate, the man offers to publish the article and asks her to give him the option of a journalist. At the same time, His Majesty has already contacted the publishing house. Ivla looks at him with interest and asks him who he has in mind when he says that he knows someone who knows how to publish news about the Iranian family. The protagonist, panicked, glances at him furtively when she starts to guess which journalist he wants to call. When the Archduke confirms her words, the man wants to call reporter Belle and expresses the desire for Ivla to be present with him at the interview. To which the girl looks at him with fear. She tries to think of something to say. When Sistine asks what's wrong, the girl plays dumb and asks if the journalist should appear, since in the past he did not write the most pleasant articles about the Archduke. To which the Archduke nods, because Belle has written articles about him before, the reporter will not be afraid of a simple interview. To which Ibella trembles with fear, because of course he will be afraid, especially when her identity is in danger of being revealed. The man says that he conducted a detailed investigation of the journalist, and that he does not like to appear in public and, on occasion, he sends his subordinates to conduct interviews for him. Sistine thoughtfully says that she is so scared of the reporter then to send someone else in her place. And that would suit her. At the same time, Ibella nervously remembers that it was she who spread such rumors about his subordinates to hide the ability to transform. The main character cautiously wonders, what if Belle doesn't come? To which tension floats in the air, and Sistine, angry, says through gritted teeth that the journalist benefited from articles about the Archduke and, therefore, he is obliged to appear. If he decides not to come, he will feel Sistine von Duren's wrath, and no one will agree with that. So she should simply refute the rumors that spread because of her. The girl, having devised a plan, smiles, asking the man if it is possible to grant her an interview alone. And the truth is that, if the Archduke is not nearby, there will be no reason to avoid talking to her. The hero wonders if everything will really be fine, while Sybilla was already silently crying with happiness because she had agreed. And nodded with satisfaction, confirming his words, to which he promises to contact the reporter. Already at night, the girl, recovering from fatigue, thinks about how she felt her life short when Sistine mentioned Abel. She thinks, realizing that as long as she is a reporter, this will happen all the time. But she cannot just stop working, because the Empress insists on publishing more articles. The heroine approaches the mirror, and comes to the conclusion that she does not want Sistine to find out everything, even if she remains under the Empress's protection. The image of an angry man appears in Ivla's head when she is afraid to even imagine such a thing. She remains silent for a couple of seconds, staying motionless after clenching her fists, and shaking her head no. He definitely shouldn't find out, and he won't. The girl moves away from the mirror, deciding confidently that they definitely won't find out, and that they will be interviewed, as expected to avoid all suspicion. The heroine goes to bed to start working tomorrow, and wishes the shadows good night, hearing in response at least 5 voices wishing her good night. The next morning, on Roland Dellen's estate, the servants are discussing an article about Lady Evil, his master's ex-girlfriend. The man approaches Roland's office door and learns from another maid that she has not yet seen this article. Meanwhile, in the office, the Duke says that 500 guest places is not so bad, but that they must prepare 700. After all, the Ilaroga family has formed many connections. He smiles slyly, lowers his voice, and says that he is marrying Bainica because of a kiss. The man hears his servant knock on the door. Roland lets him in and downplays the news by saying that if it's not about money, then it's worth discussing later. However, as soon as the Count hears that it is news about Rebel, he snatches the newspaper from the maid's hands and looks with disdain at what she has done this time. He quickly scans the text as his eyebrows furrow even more, and a second later he exclaims surprised at Rebel. And she is marrying the Archduke. Roland realizes that the wedding is scheduled for the 3rd day on Siesta Island. The day before his wedding, and still so far away, it is obvious that no one will come to his wedding. The man, desperate, remembers how she did not give him way and now understands why, bringing his palm to his face, trying to calm down. The Duke understands that Ivla is taking revenge on him through Duranta, but he also does not stand idly by. So he throws the newspaper at her feet, crushing it and asking her to prepare the carriage, because they are heading to the Alero estate. The protagonist at this moment is standing, eating cookies and looking at her article. Satisfied with her work, regretting not being able to see Roland's anger with her own eyes. She smiles and tells Nain that neither the Duke nor Alero will stand idly by. Which means you must be prepared for anything. The man replies to this by saying that there is no need to worry that they will change the wedding date. Even nobility needs to get approval from the protocol department to make any changes. He says that the Dowager Empress has already taken care of everything in advance. She personally made sure that the wedding of Delenn and Alero would take place without any changes. 9. Smiling satisfied, he tells the heroine that the head of the department already knows everything. To which Ivla hopes that they were simply notified and that nothing more was done to the poor man. The protagonist breathes a sigh of relief upon hearing this news and sits down at the table. Informing that she still needs to finish Article 9, she wonders why an interview is necessary if the article has already been published. And Bella explains that neither Sistine nor she went out into the world, nor had contact with people. Therefore, all sorts of dubious articles are published about them. The girl wants to discuss them, because sensational rumors quickly turn into generally accepted facts if they are not refuted. And therefore, she must make her statement. Nine wonders what she will write then, while Ivla reveals that she wants to write about how she met the Archduke. Because that is what worries people the most. While the girl continues talking about the dramatic story she will write. When the maid enters her room greeting her, the woman asks the main character to come down to the first floor. As soon as Ivla comes to the first floor, she sees a mountain of gifts and turns, frightened to the maid asking for an explanation. While she explains that after the article was published, the noble families began sending gifts. And letters. There were so many gifts that they had to be piled up at the entrance of the estate. The main character sits down with a sigh to read everything and asks to move everything else to the pantry. The girl opens more and more boxes and letters and realizes that all those invitations for tea and gifts in the form of the region's pride are carbon copies. Most of the letters are invitations to events in order to establish good relations with the Archduke's family. The protagonist does not want to go because all eyes will be on her at the slightest mistake. And rumors will spread not only about her, but also about Sistine. However, ignoring invitations is also not an option, but noble families are intimidated due to the possibility of receiving too much attention. But even too small a mistake can be costly. The girl gets up, scratching the back of her neck and looking at the pile of gifts. She decides that she will decide a little later, because she still has time before all the meetings. And the wedding itself. She is thinking that she still needs to discuss this with Sistine and the Empress when she is distracted by the sound of an approaching carriage. The protagonist sees the carriage door open and thinks that someone has sent her another gift when she notices the imperial family's coat of arms. And Bella sees a messenger getting out of the carriage and reads a letter from His Majesty the Emperor. The content of the letter turned out to be ridiculously simple. The Emperor summoned the girl to the palace for a personal meeting the next morning. And Bella, marrying the third most important person in the empire, expected everything from the Archduke. But definitely not this. She was sent to a meeting by the bloody Emperor, who kills everyone who dares to pose a threat to him. And the heroine could not imagine meeting him in person. The girl is tense in the hallway, thinking that she and Sistine, as husband and wife, should have been summoned to such meetings. So why was she invited alone? Previously, Ivla thought this was an initiative of the Dowager Empress. But Nain was not informed, nor told to do anything. A servant pulls the girl out of her tense thoughts and opens the door for her to say she can enter. She grabs the hem of her dress with a determined step as she enters the office, hoping that nothing serious has happened and they will just talk. The main character bows before the Emperor sitting on the throne and introduces herself. Karis greets her with a smile as Lady Rebel Bonduranta, the future Archduchess. And Bella does not dare to raise her head and politely replies that the wedding has not taken place yet, and that the girl is not yet an Archduchess, but that he can call her as he wishes. The emperor smiles maliciously when he hears her words and asks her if the heroine minds him calling her reporter Belle. The girl, paling, replies that she does not quite understand what he is talking about, while many questions arise in her thoughts about how he knows these details. The emperor with a smile asks to stop this act, taking the maid's notebook. He has already done his research and knows everything about her job. The man glanced through the pages of the notebook and read the information that the only daughter of Count Ivla. After the death of the countess from a chronic illness, her father, Count Ivla, dedicated himself to gambling, abandoning both his possessions and his own daughter. Under Ivla's alarmed gaze, he continues saying that compared to the family of Count Alero, which actively participates in politics, finance, and social circles, Ivla's family has not done the same. The man sighs disappointed, concluding that the circulating assets, the mansion pawned to the gambling house, is a meager amount, so apart from Ivla being a reporter, there is nothing remarkable. He returns the notebook to the servant and now addresses Ivla and explains that he summoned her to talk about how she managed to marry Sistine. The emperor crosses his legs, looking at her and believing that an explanation is appropriate here. Ivla quickly realizes that he means that the marriage is not real, and he suspects her and Sistine. She wonders how to explain to him that there is no personal interest in this marriage. The girl first decides to be honest after remembering how she and Sistine met. And now, burning with shame, she doesn't want to tell the whole story. She decides that she would rather stay until he tells the truth, so she pretends not to have any idea what to worry about. The main character shows a happy smile and says that they will marry for the same reason as everyone else. She met Sistine, and their mutual feelings developed over time. The emperor asks her again in disbelief, and the girl realizes that he does not believe her at all. Caris, indignant, says that this is absurd. If Sistine were capable of feeling, she would not have called Ibella. The man points out that, given the heroine's pathetic excuses, his suspicions are not unfounded. A second later, he states with disgust that Sistine and Ibella have their sights set on the throne. The main character opens her mouth in shock and exclaims that this is treason, and that she would never have thought of such a thing. Caris gets up, approaches her, and asks if the girl can guarantee that Sixtine thinks the same way she does. The man explains that he wrote an article about Sixtina's inability to fulfill his marital duty, and that this is his mistake, because the Archduke chose this path to show that he does not need power. He says that the rejection of marriage means the rejection of the heir, and the emperor was calm until a moment. Until they made a sudden wedding announcement, which made Caris doubt all the Archduke's intentions. The man continues, including all of the above, Ibella's own activities are no less suspicious, because she often sees the Dowager Empress, and even more often than Sistine himself. He frowns, thinking that he made the right assumption, because Ivla is not even guarded by ordinary knights, but by the shadows of both men's mother. The hero reveals that a lady favored by the most powerful man in the empire, the Dowager Empress, is marrying the man first in line for the throne, Sistine von Durand. The man looks at the girl, analyzing her and wanting to confirm or refute his suspicions. The main character, panicked, thinks that she needs to dispel all suspicions as quickly as possible, because if she doesn't, not only she, but also the Empress herself will be in danger. The emperor needs facts to believe her story, which means she will have to tell the truth. The girl begins to say that she understands the emperor's concerns, but that she was too embarrassed to tell the whole story before. She says that when her own fiancé left her, the heroine got drunk in a secret bar. And it turned out that Sistine was sitting next to her. And Bella, blushing, concludes the story by saying that after the conversation, not everything went as both expected. So now they are changing. Carrie exhales incredulously and asks the girl if this is the only reason they are getting married. When the heroine, with tears in her eyes, says yes. The emperor looks at her, but begins to believe because the whole story is similar to the truth. But why did the insensitive Sistine go to the bar and spend the night there with the girl? The man decides to clarify something else by asking about his mother's protection. She has never sent her shadows to protect anyone. And Bella explains that the story is long, but agrees to the Emperor's order to tell everything. At this moment, on the Alero estate, the Count was returning from the protocol department. Roland and Benica run to him and ask how everything went, and if there is any problem with the documents, while the man keeps silent. After the series of questions is over, he shakes his head and says that the wedding date cannot be changed before the young people's surprised looks. The Count covers his face with his hand, explaining that all the department employees refuse to change the date. The man points out that maybe the imperial family tried. The hero says that they simply wouldn't do that, and turns his gaze towards Benica and Roland. He asks if the young people have troubled the imperial family. The Count becomes sad before his eyes and says that if this is really the case, then for the sake of the family's future for the hero, it is better not to celebrate this wedding at all. Roland interrupts him, assuring him that they have no problems with the imperial family, and claiming that the man has connections in the department, so he will try again on his own. The Count frowns and explains in a loud tone that the hero was made to understand that this does not matter. So why should they listen to Roland? Roland exclaims that there is no need to cancel the wedding because Benica needs him, thinking to himself that he will not give up so easily because he has already gone through a lot for the sake of this marriage. The girl intensely bites her nail, trying to figure out how to support her future husband. And what to answer? Roland, not waiting for Benica's supportive words, assures the Count that he has nothing to worry about, and that it would be better to get down to business with the wedding preparations, and that he himself will take care of everything. The man finally reluctantly accepts Roland's proposal. Roland immediately heads to the carriage, gets in and orders it to go to the Fesha's Duke's protocol department to meet the Duke. He furiously promises that if Ibella conspired with the imperial family to undermine his position, then his wedding will not go smoothly. At the same time, the Emperor clarifies that his mother sent her shadows because she is watching over the heroine so that she fulfills her request. The girl bows her head, nods, and replies that everything is exactly as she told it. She only told the truth because she had no other choice. So now she only hopes that the Empress will not mind this. The Emperor sighs and assumes that Mother is really capable of this, so he replies to Ibella that he believes that the marriage is not for rebelling against him. The main character bows happily before Carries and thanks him for his trust when he immediately interrupts her. The man points out that despite everything she told him, he still does not trust the young people and therefore they must behave as expected. And Bella is surprised and bewildered that he will let them get away with it. But at the same time, he will continue to observe them. How can he suspect so much? There is no one who craves power less than Sistine, but he still suspects him. That's what it means to be an emperor. However, this was strange considering that he and Sistine got along well in the original when they were little. There must be a reason for the emperor's behavior, perhaps something happened between them, which is not mentioned in the original story, so the girl decides to ask why His Majesty doubts Sistine. She explains that observing the man, he does not long for power at all, to which the emperor's gaze turns cold. And he replies that Ivla cannot know this without probably looking into the Archduke's heart. The main character thinks with fear why she opened her mouth, but then decides to continue the discussion using the fact that Sixtine swore eternal loyalty to the emperor and became the captain of the Imperial Knights. Karis explains that people are not always what they seem at first glance, and before he also trusted his brother. He believed that Sistine was as his hero saw him. It seemed to him that he had no hidden intentions. But that was until an incident, after which everything changed dramatically. The emperor, not wanting to reveal more details, says that if Ivla wants a peaceful life next to her husband, then she should play hers properly. The man points out that although the Archduke does not long for power, who knows, those around him might change their minds. Karis tells the heroine to be careful of those who can fill her head with nonsense, and to make sure that she harbors indecent hopes, and then he will approve of her suspicious marriage. Already leaving the estate, Nine notices the terrible state of the girl after meeting the emperor. to which the heroine laughs, saying that they say they lose weight due to stress. And apparently this is true. To support the girl, the man hands her an envelope and tells her to look and cheer up because everything went well. In response to the heroine's questions, 9 says that this is a draft version of the interview. And the editor promised to put such a romantic survey on the cover because it is uncommon. And Bella remembers writing this interview and is proud that it seems true. The girl wrote the interview like a novel and not like a simple article. One could even say it was half fiction. If she had written the truth, Sistine would at least have been embarrassed. The heroine thanks the man for showing her the article and tells him to tell the publisher that she is happy with the draft. The girl asks if there was any news while she was busy, to which she receives the answer that the Dowager Empress gave her a message. 9 clarifies that His Majesty asked to clarify the schedule because the wedding preparations will begin very soon. As the man said, the next day the wedding preparations began, and to be honest, it was not the main character who was busy at all. But the Empress, after all instructions came from her. Ivla's job was to choose between the options offered to her by the woman. The girl wanted to help with something because she was the one getting married, but the Empress did not allow it. Her Majesty assured the main character that she only needed to answer questions and ask if it was necessary, if this was her patronage. The woman also asked Ivla if there was time to go somewhere with Sistine together, to which the girl happily agreed. However, when Ibella was going to visit Sistine, she saw his schedule and how busy the man was due to the upcoming wedding. The protagonist understood that, due to the postponement of the wedding to an earlier date, there were many urgent matters, so as not to interfere, she prepared to leave. But Sistine interrupted her by catching up to her upon leaving and stopping her, inviting her to lunch. Moreover, the man and the heroine enjoyed the tea party, despite the amount of work he had to do. The Archduke saw the girl's concern and assured her that she was the top priority, and that she could turn to the hero at any time without worries. After this conversation, the heroine approached the man several more times, and thus 2 weeks passed. And apparently, when everything was going so well and at such an important moment, they informed her that the girl's house would soon collapse. Under the strict guidance of the Empress, the wedding preparations went smoothly. The woman sent everything home to Ivla so that she could choose what she wanted. However, when the girl returned home, she saw a mountain of dresses she had to try on. And the hardest part was choosing one. The protagonist, just by looking at this photo, was already tired, and upon asking the fashion designer why there were so many dresses, she received the explanation that the Empress loves her very much. In addition to all of the above, the fashion designer pointed out to the girls that Ibel still has to try on jewelry, so they should hurry up. Already exhausted, the heroine heard that the servants had prepared the dress she had chosen, and they would send it before the ceremony and burn the rest. The girl jumps surprised, asking why they are going to burn the dresses, because this is environmental pollution. A waste of resources and a waste of work in the end, to which she receives the answer that it is impossible for these dresses to fall into someone else's hands because she is theirs. Wear it. And Bella takes the dresses for herself, promising to wear them every day, as she still wanted to buy a couple of dresses. And there is no need to burn them when the girl only used them once. The maid realizes that there is only one closet on the estate, and that there is simply nowhere to hang the dresses. The girl remembers that her father took out everything that was not nailed to the floor, so it is quite obvious that practically no closets are left on the estate. The protagonist holds her head and wonders how it is possible that a lady from a romantic fantasy without a closet is like a shoemaker without boots, when the maid explains that there is also nowhere to put a new closet. The girls did not want to spend money on this house, but since it was inevitable, she sent for a builder. And he offered to tear down a wall and make a bigger room. The builder, tilting his head, explained to the girl that there was a small problem. He said that the building was too old and apparently had not been cared for at all. So in its current state, it would collapse at any sneeze. The man noted that it was surprising that the building was still standing and advised that, for safety reasons, it should be demolished and rebuilt again. This news struck the protagonist like a bolt from the blue, because her plan was completely different. Simply expand her wardrobe. Clothes. It was too expensive, so Ivla has the idea that it would be easier to send the dresses to the Archduke's estate when a voice behind her says, "Let's start the perestroika." Sistine appears behind her and promises to cover the reconstruction costs and hire more workers to speed it up. To the heroine's questions about how the man appeared here, he explains that he arrived as soon as he heard that the girl wanted to start the perestroika. Ivla appreciates the hero's concern, but says there are too many problems with the property when she hears her father's shouts. Count Ivla suddenly appears, saying he forbids reconstructing the estate. When Sistine asks him what the problem is, since it is also dangerous for him to be on the estate, he comes up with a moving story that the estate is full of memories of his late wife and his parents. The protagonist knows this is not true because the emperor told her an absolutely absurd fact. His investigation showed that Count Ivla even lost the house documents. So the house passed into someone else's ownership. Of course, rebuilding the property simply makes no sense, as it belongs to someone else. He also opposes demolishing the estate under the enlightened gaze of his father. The Count happily says that, of course, he wants to keep the house they like so much. While Ivla, interrupting him, says that there is less than a week left until the wedding, and that after the ceremony she will move to live on the Archduke's estate, so there is no need for reconstruction. His father approaches her from behind and asks what's wrong with him and where he will live. The girl, already irritated, asks Sistine to leave with her so they can talk without the participation of the annoying Count. Leaving him behind, the man says that if that is the heroine's wish, they can postpone the construction. But for now, she can find a place to stay for a while. The main character looks awkwardly aside and replies that until yesterday everything was fine, which means we can live for one more week in the same place. The hero objects because he cannot allow a girl to stay in such a dangerous house because her safety is the top priority. Suddenly, when the man says this, the voice of a woman is heard, who with a sigh rereads that she came to look at the chosen dress. And then more serious problems arose. The Empress appears on the estate greeting the heroes. The woman invites Ivla to move to the Archduke's estate a little earlier, if of course. The heroes don't mind. His Majesty smiles cheerfully, saying that this way the girl will not have to look for a place to live. And Rebel will be safe. Sistine also nods, accepts his mother's proposal, and asks the girl if everything is fine with her. And Bella, blushing, shakes her head, not yet mentally prepared to share the same bed with a man. She is about to say that she is against it when Sistine informs her that there are many rooms on his estate. The girl looks up surprised, clarifying that they will sleep separately, to which the hero nods because they are not married. The man looks at her, giving her the choice, and answering that if she wants to share the bed. And Bella interrupts him by refusing. He smiles at her reaction, blushing slightly. As a result, the construction of the dressing room was postponed, and the main character moved to the estate a week before the wedding. Already on the estate, Sistine shows the heroine her room, to which she exclaims surprised because such a luxurious room is already free. The man says that all rooms on his estate are like this, but that he could not put the girl in a room that was not ready. And Bella also has no time to guess when the hero explains that this is their shared bedroom. The girl hesitantly asks if they will share a room already, and corrects herself by saying that she was simply mistaken before. Sistine nods, smilingly replying that they will sleep together starting next week. But for now, this room is hers, thinking that she is becoming more and more charming. The man says he will tell her about the duties of the Archduchess after the wedding, and that now she can explore the estate and meet the servants. The hero says goodbye to the girl, and the next day, as Sistine suggested, she goes to meet the servants. And the butler Elia introduces himself. After meeting the servants, the girl and the butler explored the vast domain of the Archduke, which turned out to have been built to withstand the attack of magical beasts. At first, the main character found the property cold and unwelcoming. But now she sees comfort here. More importantly, The atmosphere next to Sistine became more comfortable and warm, and when he approached the heroine during a walk, she invited him to join. And Bella unconsciously began to look forward to every meeting with a man. The week flew by, and the wedding had arrived, when the heroes appeared in public in luxurious outfits. The wedding ceremony, guests discussed an article about love at first sight and admired the newlyweds. The main character was not a duchess, not even a marchioness, so everyone had doubts. But now all the guests saw that the Archduke was in love in the basement, and the way he carefully put on the ring said it all. The Empress, sitting nearby, is glad that the nobility did not make a scandal about Ivla's origins. After the wedding, the girl notices that they did a good job and asks them if they are going to the hero's estate. To which Sistine replies that they will simply return to the villa. The man explains that his estate is not the best place for a wedding night, to which the protagonist asks how bad it is. The hero says that the situation is much better than before, but sometimes monsters approach the estate and scratch the windows, but if the heroine wishes they can go there, to which the girl refuses. Sistine and Ibella, upon returning to the estate at night, notice that they are completely alone. A day earlier, the butler warned Ibella that immediately after their wedding, all servants would have 3 days off so that the heroes could rest properly in private. She said that, as a rule, several servants remain, but the Archduke insisted that they manage on their own. Just the two of them, and they are husband and wife. Ivla assumes that now this cannot be avoided. The girl thinks that she is nervous, so she decides to calm the atmosphere. They say she is ready. Sistine looks at her inquisitively while explaining that, since this is their first night together, he will fulfill his marital duty. The man says that she owes nothing. Because this marriage is built for mutual benefit in the end, the hero will not demand a typical family life from Ivla. The main character does not like that he draws a line between them again and runs up the stairs. Standing in front of him, the girl replies that maybe he doesn't demand anything from her, but she will, because she has dreamed of it her whole life. And that's why she came here. She points out that it doesn't matter what the reason is. Marriage is marriage, now they are a couple. The heroine grabs the man by the shoulders and tells him that the relationship between them will be the most normal, but that they can have lunch together and share their experiences. The girl pulls him closer, asking if from time to time they can share a bed and allow themselves a simple life like normal couples. The heroine freezes because she started a diatribe because she did not like Sistine's attitude towards marriage. And now what should she do? She will let him go when the man asks if everything is fine. And Bella nods and they kiss. The next day is Roland's wedding, who explains that it will last for 2 days. First there will be a banquet and then the main event. After all, if the ceremony lasts until tomorrow, the guests will have time to arrive from the island. To which the Count says that it is a smart decision to shield themselves behind the impossibility of changing the wedding date by simply extending it. The man says he will turn a blind eye to this, as Roland still tried to get out of the situation. To which the hero thanks him and asks Vainica for her opinion. The girl says she has a better option, not marrying the hero at all. But she agrees because her father has already given his consent. Who would have thought that the heroine would lose all desire to get married? However, Roland will not give up simply because he needs to benefit from Vainica and her family, taking his fiancée by the hand and leading her to the aisle, wanting to show how good she looks. He approaches the large doors, opens them, and says that they will still laugh at this situation in the future. When someone calls him, the man sees the investigators' knights standing at their threshold and ask him if he is Roland. The hero says that he is Roland when he asks Vainica to stay behind the doors. The deputy commander of the investigating knights, Seal, introduces himself to him and tells him that a report has been written about him. The knights show him a photograph that the main character took shortly before her own wedding. And he is stunned when he recognizes the people in it. All the people in the photo gave their testimony, so there was no doubt left. The knight approaches the man, handcuffs him, and tells him that he is arrested for illegal tax collection. 2 days ago, the main character gave Nain an envelope saying that she had an errand for the man. And Bella says that she hasn't written anything for a long time and decided to correct it by writing an article about the investigation of corruption in the hope that it will help the merchants. She tells the man on the morning of Roland's wedding day to take her to the inspection, and not to the printing house, which receives a look of surprise. The girl says that some reports come from an anonymous source, so she decides to create a sensation. Immediately, a group of journalists ask Roland about the bandits and illegal tax collection and ask him if his fiancée knows about it. The man is indignant about why this is happening today and replies that he knows nothing. Because if Benika's father finds out, the engagement will probably be cancelled immediately. He yells through the door to his fiancée to explain everything to her father as some kind of misunderstanding. At the same time, Benika is already pushing her father into the carriage, replying to her father's questions that nothing is important anymore, and that she initially did not want to marry this man. The heroine thought that he would stay put, so she didn't reject the wedding, but illegal tax collection is too much. So she decides to leave. She sighs relieved because if she had married him, he would have destroyed her family. So everything ended. At the same time, Sistine looks at the harsh headlines, while Ivlu explains that such an important event would not have happened without high-profile articles. The girl comments happily that she thought the articles would not be published until the evening. But credit should be given to the journalists for not wasting time. The man notices, surprised, that Ivla knows a lot about journalism. The protagonist, trying to leave, says that maybe she knows a little about journalism. When the Archduke replies surprisedly that he would believe the girl if she said she was a journalist. He offers her a snack because he is hungry, even though it is late. She says with a smile that she didn't even imagine that they would wake up so late on yours, because she barely opened her eyes. And the sun was already setting through the window. Sistine, not at all surprised, replies that it was to be expected because they went to bed late. The main character remembers something like a long night, which began with a kiss and lasted almost all night. As a result of all this, the heroes only fell asleep at dawn and woke up at sunset. The girl remembers that the resistance of the boy, without training, and apparently the training of the night were felt precisely that night. As the heroine fell asleep, all sorts of thoughts spun in her head. The emperor said that the reason Sixtine said they wouldn't get married was to show that he didn't need power. So why did he break his word and marry a girl just to stage a coup? She decides to find out by asking why the man married her. The hero asks if the girl likes romantic stories, to which she replies affirmatively. He says with a serious face that he fell in love with her at first sight when the girl reproaches him for lying. And not blushing. The man says he has already told her the reason for the wedding, but since he promised not to use the word use, he cannot tell her how it should be. And she sees the bewildered question if he married to take advantage of her when she receives an affirmative answer. She asks surprisedly how the man uses her, how she can be useful to the Archduke. Sistine replies that all he can say is that he gives her what she needs most. The man tells her not to worry and to simply enjoy the power, the luxury, the glory, and the revenge. He promises to give her all this because she gives him something of equal value. At night, the heroine stands by the window thinking why she takes a step closer to a man, and immediately steps back too. She does not understand why he simply cannot tell everything honestly, because if the heroine knew, she would do everything possible to help. The girl remembers how many secrets she has from the hero, and realizes that she is also good at hiding many things from him. And she decides to accept it, because someday he himself will tell everything. 3 days later, the servants returned to the estate and began their duties as Archduchess. The heroine was explained that until now the Duke had managed all the estate matters alone. But now that the owner has appeared, the management of the estate, the organization of events, and some external matters will fall on her shoulders. The girl says she was waiting for this, and unlimited enthusiasm is seen on her face when the butler warns that if it turns out to be difficult for her. The heroine cannot do this, she just needs to tell the count. The butler takes a large box with a bunch of letters and says that they need to start sorting the invitations. The woman says to check them and reply to those she intends to visit, when the heroine exclaims, "Why are there so many?" The butler explains that here are the invitations that were sent after the wedding, and also those that were brought from Ivla's estate. She remembers that she had postponed all these letters for later, but that was not the main problem in high society. They don't like to make everything up. Therefore, the heroine must thoughtfully reply so as not to create discomfort in the future. And it is even more important to show up for the invitation. All this gave the girl a headache, but suddenly Sistine, who appeared out of nowhere, takes the box. The man throws the invitation into the fireplace and explains that they came before the wedding, which means there is no need to reply to them, especially if Vila has a headache. The girl stops the hero and tells him that she appreciates his concern, but she cannot give up everything just because replies are difficult for her. The heroine's wife from now on is secondary, and therefore she must choose an event where she will debut as Archduchess. She explains that this way there will be less rumors when the sight of a letter with a family seal freezes. And Bella asks Sistine to go up when she sees an invitation from the Dillon for the 24th. The girl reads the letter, which describes the woes by which 20% of Count Dillon's possessions go to the imperial family, and frowns because in this case the family is simply trying to prove that they are still afloat. The Dillon try to prove with this banquet that they have enough money and have not hit rock bottom. That's why they invite her. The main character sighs at this truly obscene invitation and suggests burning it when Sistine objects, and suggests going to the banquet. And she sees the question if they won't add more fuel to the fire if, after shuffling the weddings, they also show up at the bank. When the man replies that no matter where they go, everyone will be whispering in corners. Sistine explains that if they attend a banquet of a high-ranking aristocrat, they will think they are seeking power. But if they go to an event, the society elite will think they want wealth, and therefore the most profitable option is to go to the Dylans. And it is true that the Dylan banquet is already one of the biggest events in the empire. And the Archduchess herself will appear there. And if we take into account that this is the first event after the tax scandal, of course she will come there, and I know it, and journalists are the best place where Ibel will make her debut. The protagonist is happy that she can show Roland how wonderful her life is without him and, smiling slyly, she agrees to attend the banquet. Already at the Delina estate, Roland's father and Roland himself observe how many people attended the banquet, even though they celebrate it with their last money. The Count is waiting for Benica, and when the servant informs him that someone has arrived, he turns around cheerfully, expecting to see his ex-girlfriend. Roland runs to the exit in shock, checking if this is true, because they sent invitations only out of courtesy, and they didn't think they would actually show up. And Bella steps on the threshold with a happy smile and greets Viscount Roland from the Delaine house. People are murmuring that the Archduke usually does not attend social events, and most likely it is because of the girl who is making her debut. The protagonist tells her husband that she doubted whether she should come, but seeing the banquet, she says she is glad they came. He furiously bangs the wall, asking the void until when the Archduchess is going to make fun of him. The man understands that in this situation, he is absolutely powerless as long as the girl is under the protection of the imperial family. He is trying to figure out how to share rebel with his husband and remembers that Ivla always went out at night to work. In every one of their meetings, the heroine constantly covered herself with work and slipped away somewhere. But she did not answer questions about who she worked for. Since Roland only intended to play with her, he didn't care too much. But still, what kind of job was she doing then? He realizes that maybe she had been going out with men the whole time. The Archduke mentioned that he fell in love with Rebelle at first sight. And what if he suddenly found out that his beloved was meeting a different man every night? While the man thinks about his plan, a boy suddenly approaches him from behind and tells him that it is difficult to organize a banquet with so much confusion. Roland exclaims how he dares, to which the man replies that it was only a joke, and that a viscount like him would never end up in the middle of a mess. The mysterious man hands the Viscount a card and explains that here he can get whatever he wants. Whether it's power or fame, but in return he only needs money. He observes that the business card is an invitation and promises, evaporating. To eagerly await Roland's visit. The Viscount looks around for the mysterious guy, accidentally brushing past a man walking next to him. He apologizes and offers to continue enjoying the banquet while hiding the card behind his back. Those who passed by turned out to be 9, who had already heard about Riley and decided to tell the Archduchess everything. Meanwhile, Ivla laughs at Roland's reaction and offers Sistine a drink. But he refuses, saying that he does not tolerate alcohol well. The man looks around and admits that no one expected their visit to families like theirs do not usually attend such banquets that are held in old buildings. The main character is surprised that the man calls such a brilliant building old. And now she understands why he insisted on restoring his house. The girl decides to change the subject, expressing her joy that she managed to debut for the second time. Because the first debut was terrible. While the young people are talking, the crowd decides to approach the Archduchess and flatter her a bit. And she will melt. Immediately, a crowd of people approaches Ivla, interested in her business plans, her life and her assets. Sistine looks at the girl and asks if everything is fine. Suddenly, the man feels his magic getting out of control, but he doesn't understand why. Because Rebel is nearby. He wonders if the girl's condition is reflected in him when he asks her a question. The heroine, pale and scared, turns to him frozen. The girl runs to the hero and asks if everything is fine, very worried about his condition. When the man says he was just dizzy. He smiles at the main character, tells her that he needs to get some fresh air, and invites her to walk with him. The heroes go out into the garden, admiring the beautiful flowers, when the girl asks about Sistine's condition. The man feels his magic calmed down and understands that the heroine's condition really affects his magic. He calmly replies that he has an illness that no doctor can cure. As soon as the main character hears his words, she flies towards the man. She touches his forehead to check for fever and asks what kind of illness he has. And Bella, at his calm reply that this is hard to explain, starts to worry. And getting even angrier, asking him to tell her everything why she is worried. The man decides to tell her everything avoiding a certain case, because such information will not be possible to hide forever. And he asks her what she knows about magic. The main character remembers that there are people who have mana, and if they know how to control it, they can become mages or sorcerers. Sistine notes that the heroine is well informed, and tells her that he was born with an immense amount of mana that cannot be compared to any mage. The hero explains that this magic is like an inextinguishable fire, and as a rule, in everyday life it is suppressed. But even the slightest spark that jumps from the fire and starts a real fire, when this happens, the hero's head splits in two, and it becomes difficult to contain all the magical power. The man continues saying that this is why he visited his domain once a month and fought monsters. And she sees the note with surprise that he hasn't gone there for the last month, to which the men nod. Sistine, looking her in the eyes, says that he will stabilize Manu in him. The girl replies surprisedly that she cannot do any of that, to which the hero replies that he simply didn't know. Thanks to the main character, he no longer had to visit the estate, and she is truly unique in being able to calm his magic. The girl is surprised, even if she is capable of this or that, why she felt bad at the banquet. Sistine says that he recently realized how well the magic is suppressed depends on Ivla's mental state. And since she felt bad at the banquet, he did too. The main protagonist excuses herself by saying that the crowd's conversations tired her so much that she couldn't even keep track of her own face. The girl is surprised by this ability and is glad to have something more than transformation. When the hero asks her why she lost her composure, because he generally doesn't care about those around her. And Bella feels and says that, as a rule, she doesn't care about everyone's attention. But she remembers her terrible first debut, which she talked about, and asks if she can share the story. The girl explains that there is nothing special about the story, and this could have happened to any member of such a pathetic family as hers. She remembers how in the past, at social events, everyone ignored her, and throughout the entire dance, no one invited her to dance. The protagonist is indignant because back then no one invited her because of the rumors. And now these same people are trying to court her, without even hiding their intentions. The man looks away, nods, and realizes that even he has encountered this. Sistine becomes gloomy, remembering the same people who spread rumors to discredit someone's reputation, turning a decent person into a real monster. The pale hero covers his head again at the excited babbling of the main character. The girl thinks her ability has spoiled again, taking him by the arm, thinking about returning and finding a solution or problem. Meanwhile, Roland is angry because the banquet guests are only waiting for the Archduke to return, paying no attention to him. The man, putting this aside, remembers that he organized this banquet solely for Vainica's sake. When the butler tells him that the Lero family has arrived, the Viscount plays nice, telling the girl that he has prepared a room where they can discuss everything, to which he receives a refusal. Vainica, angry, observes that a misunderstanding has arisen between them, because Roland still doesn't understand that everything is over between them. The heroine shouts for Roland not to dare approach her anymore, under the whispers of the crowd making fun of the man. People with a smile on their face remember that he disgraced the Archduchess by breaking up with her, and he himself never denied having a mistress. Suddenly, the crowd notices that the Archduke's carriage is moving away, while Roland bows his head in despair. People are about to leave annoyed. There is nothing more to do at the banquet despite Roland's request to stay a little longer. The man asks what will happen to his expenses, since many guests will simply leave after starting to scream in despair. Meanwhile, the girl doesn't know what to do because the doctors cannot help Sistine. She asks him in what other way it is possible to calm the magic. The man says in a low voice that he needs to go to the edge of the garden where he planted the ray flowers. The main character remembers the article and realizes that these are the same flowers that are aphrodisiacs.
Yes.